Okay, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Glad to be here. Ready to rock and roll. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. You better believe it. You better believe it. I'm glad to have you all here. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Let me get your chats on screen so everybody in the VODs and clips can see your brilliant messages. Here we go. Okay. Voila. Then pull up your chat over here. Okay. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Love the shirt? Yeah, you gotta love the shirt. Because it's truth. It's truth. It's truth is what it is. Hit the gwitty. I have to hit the gwitty? Are you serious? I have to hit the gwitty for real wife? Oh yeah, Leo, members only stream was a banger. Yeah, especially when that one thing happened that I'm not going to talk about because you had to be there. You had to be there. It was a whole thing. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. It was a whole thing. Some more lives going on with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League today. Yes, that I think happens like any minute now, right? Suicide Squad. Somewhere, right? I also have a lot of work to do to like fix some of this stuff because like some of my debut live stream. Okay, they're streaming it now. I'm more interested in Shroud. I think he's on Twitch though. Yeah. Shroud. Okay. Dude, does it make you feel good or bad that Shroud for this stream is probably making more than you or I will make in a decade? Does that not humble you? Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. So yeah, don't remind me, Luke. Sorry. What's he saying? What's he saying?
Probably going to be difficult. Maybe. I don't know how much we're doing today, but I know we're doing a few missions. We're going to be playing for about 3 hours, give or take. So we're going to jump in the game in like a few minutes. We're going to let some people come in, let some people hang out, and just kind of chat, and then we can get off this full screen cam.
So they're going to be given 3 hours with the game.
Go ahead and show my screen just to make sure it works. So I'm going to hit this button really quick. So now you'll see them. These are my friends. Okay, these are my friends. There's Tarek. There's Dr. Lupo looking good. Let me see if you guys see.
I know Shroud. I don't remember which one is Dr. Lupo.
Okay.
So have to forgive me.
We're in the game.
So
these are the characters.
Who's the fourth player though?
Captain Boomerang, King Shark. This is us. So I'm gonna go ahead really quickly and swap some of my weapons because they gave us a whole list of weapons. Some of them are crazy strong, so we're not going to be using the crazy strong ones today. We're going to be using ones that aren't as strong. There's these notorious villain weapons that are insane, but we're not using those. We're going to use a few legendaries. I think I'm going to grab...
You gotta love Shroud that he could use the overpowered stuff, but he chooses not to because it wouldn't be as much fun.
Hey
What's
there.
good?
Hey there.
How we feeling today, gentlemen?
We're feeling
good.
ready. Feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the plan to steal these signs behind us and take them home with us. Yeah.
Right? I was just talking about how
Oh, I want this. I want this thing in my studio for sure.
I mean, so this whole thing is going to be interesting for everybody just joining. Basically, what's going on is that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is having an event today where they are going to be showcasing some of the game in detail.
$50 through Super Chat.
Sean, thank
Good
you.
morning. Just a quick coffee, then off to work. Luke, that message should be delivered soon.
Ooh, fantastic. I have alerts for it too. So when it gets delivered, I can they're supposed to email me, but I go and check it like once or twice a week, my mailbox. So don't worry. Once I get it, we'll open it on stream and it'll be super cool. So all of this to say, they're doing like a preview event thing for Suicide Squad. Now, I initially thought this was going to be a video, but they're actually live streaming it. And they're playing it. Now, I'm not sure, they might have already mentioned, and I didn't catch it, but I don't know how much of the game these guys have played. Shroud, as you know, is a very accomplished streamer and competitive, like FPS player and shooter player. He's amazingly talented at video games. So he's a solid person to get a hold of. And then they have Dr. Lupo and another guy I don't remember the name of that I don't think I've heard of. So they have 3 streamers doing this. What's interesting about that is that there are 4 players in a squad. So I don't know if the 4th is going to be just a bot or what they're doing. I guess, his camera's covering it up. So I'm not sure, which is interesting. They also have the big sponsored banner here for FTC reasons. They have to disclose that they're being paid to do this. This also seems to be taking place at some sort of separate location. They're not streaming it from their home or from their studios with their own PCs. This is running off of hardware provided to them, and they're in a separate space where the Warner Brothers team has set it all up. Now, what's interesting about this approach is that the last thing they did was a preview event. And the thing about preview events is that normally you bring in press and they bring in like media and YouTubers and streamers and TikTokers, and you bring them in so that they can hype up your game. They play it, they like it. Usually the event makes the game look a little bit better than it actually is because they're trying to show you only the best stuff. And so people go back and they basically explain it as like a 9 out of 10. And then, when you get the game, maybe it's an 8 out of 10. That's normally how it goes. The last preview event where they invited creators, streamers, YouTubers, and TikTokers, the response was generally negative. Like, at the very least, it was not positive. Most media was like, I'm less excited now that I've played it, which is the opposite of what you want to have happen. And then they lifted the NDA so people that played the playtest could talk openly about their experience, and it seems that didn't really have much of an impact on the public perception. Some people have played this absolutely in the playtests and stuff and have loved it and are super excited. Other people have played it and are generally underwhelmed. So it's just kind of a mixed bag. What's going to be interesting about this, and to be clear, we're not going to, sorry, wrong camera. We're not going to sit here and like watch the full thing. We'll probably bounce in like an hour and see where they're at and how is it going, because they are playing with endgame characters, to be clear. And that's mainly what I've been interested in seeing, because all this time, Suicide Squad's developers, Rocksteady and Warner Brothers, have been saying that the end game is where the game gets really good. There's some really cool stuff that happens, and the builds are super varied. So the version of Harley Quinn you play at the start of the game is going to be very different from the version you play at the end of the game after 100 hours, blah, blah, blah. Really, there's a lot of nuance to it. You can do whatever you want. And we've never seen the end game. Today that will change. Today we're seeing the end game, and we're going to see some very talented players try it. Now, in the past, when games have to pay streamers to try live service games, generally it doesn't save the game that already has a negative perception. Sometimes it blows up, like with Apex Legends. That game exploded. They paid pretty much every big streamer to play the game when it launched. And that game now, still years later, is a mainstay of the AAA Battle Royale genre. It's super successful. Other times it's worked. Fortnite, I think, occasionally does it. But at this point, they don't really have to pay people to stream Fortnite. They just do it. So occasionally that'll happen. But in this case, with these types of events, they're it's a bit of a stretch because they're trying to convince these streamers that this is worth playing, and perhaps more importantly, they're trying to convince their audience that this is worth watching and playing themselves. Because the way that a game like this becomes successful is if streamers latch on because the community is interested, and then it creates this fulfilling loop where the creator makes content for the game that keeps people engaged in the game while they play it, and then they keep watching the content so they can justify making more content for it, and it just spins and spins and spins. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Which comes first, the creator making content or the audience wanting to consume the content, because they can't consume the content if there is no content. So it just spins, and it's kind of trying to decide who's going to go first. The way that they usually make this happen is by just straight up paying, like straight up paying for these streamers to do it, which is what they're doing here. They're just paying the streamers to do this. I heard somebody say he's probably making 30,000 to do this stream. I don't know how much he's making, but I will tell you right here and now, he is making most likely 10 times that amount. Okay. And I'm saying this not because I've ever made 10x that, but because I know how these things scale, and like with his audience, with his reputation, I'm guessing he's making 10 times that amount. Okay. Just being honest. Okay. They're doing very well right now. Possibly even more. You just never know. They pay, like, I think they didn't say specifically how much they made, but like some of these big streamers in a single month, they'll make $200,000 with some sponsorships and stuff. So it's just very important to understand there's a lot of money riding on this. I'm interested in how this kind of plays out. I don't think they've given them the game to play for like 100 hours. They're generally familiar with the game, but I don't think
We're chilling.
they're experts in it by any means. These things are always so awkward,
How's
though.
King Shark doing navigating all this?
Oh, I'm doing great.
You're doing good?
Doing good.
Oh, apparently for production, my game cap just died again. Wouldn't be a Twitch stream with, or Twitch, imagine. wouldn't be a sponsored stream without some sort of hiccup, right? I'm sure they'll come over and take it.
And they're already having technical issues. That's hilarious. So we're going to keep an eye on it. We'll bounce in every once in a while throughout the stream. Jacob, just so you know, I think you can clip this first section, and then as we bounce back into it to see where they're at in an hour or so, you can clip that section and then stitch them all together into a longer kind of reaction to the live event. But basically what's riding on this is a handful. Why are there cars there? What? Oh, I forgot. You can't rewind on Twitch. There were cars on the roof. That was weird. But what's riding on this is that they have to show the community that, for one, the end game is worth getting to, which is a big, that's a very important thing. Because if you're going to play a live service game, you have to convince them that after the story content's over, the game is still good. And that is kind of a big question mark right now for a lot of people. The second thing is that you need to convince them in this particular use case that the game is worth like streaming and creating content for, because live service games require an infrastructure of creators making content. And if you don't have that, the game dies. I can't think of a single live service game that is not also paired with a very healthy community of content creators. So that's a very crucial element. And if they are going to struggle making videos and streams and content about this game after just like a few hours of playing it today, that will be, I think, the real death knell. Because there were even creators making content for Marvel's Avengers up until the day that they kind of shut it down. It's still like technically playable, I think, but you can't buy a copy of it anymore. It's not available for sale. So if the people were still making content for that game after all that time, surely they'll still make it for this. I just think as for the big guys, that's what really matters. You know, Shroud streaming your game is the equivalent of like, 20, 30,000 other creators making content and streaming your game that are smaller. So they need to convince these big guys. And if they can't do that, then they are in trouble. Shoot the zit. Oh, yeah. Oh, baby. So we'll bounce in, see if the missions look any different. I'm surprised that the endgame missions look identical to the other missions we've seen, but you know what? We'll bounce back in and see where they're at and how they're doing. So we'll bounce back in every once in a while and see what they're up to. Okay. There we go. Again, thank you, Sean, for the very generous super chat. I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you. Also, Yokes, thank you for gifting a sub to Josh. Thank you. And welcome Josh to the sub club. Awesome. Okay. Am I going to play this? I mean, we're going to see if I can get a review code for it. Let's be honest, the odds of that happening are very slim. Otherwise, you know, I think a video on it would do well. I think at this point people would be interested in seeing it. So I would expect to try it. You know, I would love to be convinced that this is awesome, but time will tell. It's a big cup. It's a big cup full of coffee too. We got that Nespresso and I'm going hard for it, dude. It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay. Let's see. Is that a Stanley? No, dude. No. Who do you think you're messing with? Who do you think you're dealing with? It's a Yeti. Way better than Stanley. Way better. Not even close. Not even close. Elijah, so yeah, have you done a video on Avowed? Not yet. We're going to do all of that right now because Joe Raptor is going to clip some stuff from the stream, the podcast today. So I'm just going to do kind of my own reactions to these things. We're going to talk about it here. And if you missed the podcast, no worries. We're going to go through all of it again here. Lean and mean. So, new segment. In case somehow you missed it, yesterday Xbox had their developer direct, which is honestly a pretty cool way of doing this, where instead of like Phil Spencer getting up there and then having all of these like Hollywood people get up there and try to convince you that the game is really good, they instead just go up there and have the developers themselves talk to you, the community, about the game. And I love it much more than the standard like game awards reveal where they're like, oh, look, we brought the actor on stage to convince you that the game is really good. And it's like, I respectfully don't care that much. I'm sure the actor is very talented, but the actor is also an actor, not a gamer, might not even play video games. Like, it just doesn't really mean much to me. So I really like this format for one. And we got a bunch of cool reveals and looks at different things. We got to look at the Indiana Jones game. We got to look at Avowed. We got to look at, of course, Hellblade 2. And I have thoughts on all of it. So we're going to tackle it here and now. This segment, or if you're watching this after the fact, this stream clip is going to be on Indiana Jones. We're going to go through that. I'm going to offer my thoughts there. And then we're also going to do a separate clip for Hellblade and for Avowed, just so if you're only interested in one of those games, you don't have to sit through all three of them, okay? First things first, we've known about the Indiana Jones game for a minute. We've known about it, but we haven't seen anything about it. We knew that this was a passion project from Todd Howard. He had been hinting at it for a while, but there really was not much information available for it other than that it was coming from Machine Games. And if you don't know Machine Games, they're the guys that did the Wolfenstein games. Wolfenstein games, okay? So they're a very accomplished developer of cinematic first-person shooters, first and foremost. That's what they're known for. And here, they're doing something very, very similar. And they dropped this trailer and an extended kind of look at the whole thing. I also apologize for all of the screen tearing. I honestly don't know why my setup is doing that all of a sudden, but it is. So I will just need you guys to bear with me while it does that. We're going to work on a fix, but that being said, with all this, I think tonally, immediately, it does feel like Indiana Jones, which surprised me. I was kind of braced for this to feel like a weird spinoff, or maybe the cringiest thing they could have done would try to do a spinoff character or a separate character where it's like Indiana Jones, but you play as Shia LaBeouf. Like, I was really braced for something stupid like that, but they actually are doing it. They're doing the thing, and I think it's awesome.
Best Man Gamer donated £5 through Super Chat. Hey Luke, still in the hospital and have had surgery on my lung and everything is going well. Can't wait to go home.
Oh, Best Man Gamer. Hopefully you are doing well. That's crazy. I I was gonna say I feel for you, but I can't even imagine what that feels like. So relax. Hopefully they've got you on some good meds that are making it a little bit easier. Yeah, I can't wait to go home. I believe it. I believe it. Relax, my friend. Relax. You need it. Thank you for being here, though. Hopefully this kind of takes your mind off of everything. Appreciate you, my friend. And thank you for the super chat. Very generous. And Sean also with the 5 gifted memberships on YouTube. Welcome everybody to the see, when it's subs, it's like sub club. Memberships, there's not really a thing. Welcome to the membership ship. It doesn't really work. It doesn't flow off the tongue as well. But thank you, Sean, and welcome everybody. Appreciate you. Okay. And also, Dark Spider David, what are your best or typical practices on asking for review codes from studios? You literally just send an email. You link them to your stuff. You say, my audience is this big. I've worked with these studios before on reviews. You can see those reviews here. I'd like to cover your game. And you just kind of ask. Eventually, you'll get like an agent and managers that can do that for you and have their own contacts, and they ask on your behalf and stuff. So then it gets easier. You just don't really have to bother with it. But in the meantime, you have to ask awkwardly for that. And then eventually you'll also get big enough that they'll just send it to you. And it's like, you don't even have to do anything. But in the meantime, you just send the emails and just ask honestly and be transparent with your audience size and what you've covered before. And usually that works. Oh, Leo, God damn it. That works way better. Welcome to the membership. Maybe we have like a little animation where it's like a little boat sails across the screen and it has like your name on it. Welcome to the membership as it sails by. That could be funny. That could be good. I need to revamp all of our graphics and everything. I need to redo all of this, the screen and the starting soon page. We got to redo all of it. I just have to find a company or an artist that can do that. Like, I'll pay them well. It's very hard to find somebody that can do a fully custom thing that's not on Fiverr, you know, that does like just copy and pasted work. Okay. All that to say, thank you guys for that. Thank you for all the gifts and everything. Appreciate you guys. And Membrane Productions, Uncharted, but it's accurate to the source material. Kind of, yeah. It's like Uncharted was inspired by Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones, probably more Indiana Jones than anything. And then this is just Indiana Jones that's inspired by Tomb Raider and Uncharted. So it's funny how it's now reversed, but it's crazy. Okay. Let's continue on. So with all of this, it's from Lucasfilm Games. It's from Machine Games. These little segments remind me of the opening of Uncharted 4. I don't know if you guys remember that, but running around the rooftop of the orphanage, it reminds me of that very, very vividly, which is funny. And then we get our shot of the titular character right here and now. What's interesting about this is Todd Howard. No, what's interesting about this is that the game developers chose to go with a first-person perspective for most of it, okay? Most of the game is in first person. They go out to third person for certain traversal elements like climbing up ladders or up ropes, free climbing, or cutscenes, of course, are in third person. But core gameplay and combat is in first person. And this has caused some drama. Shocker, right? Drama in the gaming community. It's caused some drama. And a lot of this is because people like adventure games like Uncharted in third person. They just like to have the wider view. They can kind of see the epic scale of things. Kind of puts you, especially when you're playing a voiced and written character, you're not playing like an RPG. Being in that third person perspective can make it clear that you're playing a character, not playing yourself in the world as a character, if that makes sense. So some people just were really hoping for a third person perspective. My perspective on this, offering my not third person perspective, is I think it was the right choice, honestly. I really do. Machine Games is a developer that specializes in first person shooters. For them to go and make a third person adventure game would be a little bit out of left field. I just think it would be a little too distant. And combat, third person versus first person, very different. They just are. It's in the same general area. It's still a shooter, but they're very, very different in terms of feel, in terms of controls. The added animation sets you have to build out for movement, for walking and jumping and getting behind cover, all of that stuff is extremely vast. It's not that simple to just switch to third person. There's just a lot of moving parts with it. And I think Machine Games is a studio that specializes in first-person games, first-person shooters, and they decided to focus on their specialty here. So that's what they're doing. And I think it was also, like I said, the right choice. I think it makes sense for that particular studio. For another studio, yeah, maybe go third person. For Machine Games, I think going first person is the right choice. And we still get the benefit of third person in adventure sequences, in cinematic sequences, in cutscenes and stuff. So we still get those perks there. But in the more lean areas that are just core gameplay, it allows them to give first person shooter stuff and focus on that. Some people, like I see Holger in Twitch chat, cannot play first person, vertigo and motion sickness. I totally get that. I'm somebody that can't play the Doom games because they make me motion sick. There's something about the way that those games are built in first person that makes me super motion sick. I can play other first person shooters fine, but Doom specifically makes me hella motion sick. It's really weird. But I totally feel for you there. There's also, you know, unfortunately, there's some games that just don't work for people. Some formats that don't work for people.
Jordan
You know, it happens.
$6.99
Thank you, Jordan.
Super chat. Any interest in Tomb Raider i3 remastered?
1 through 3 remastered. I don't know if the remaster interests me. If it's a remake, yeah, I'd be more inclined. But I just, with so many of these games, I feel like remasters are tough to justify unless there's like a $10 upgrade, you know, where it's minimal, and then there's also added content, maybe cosmetics, cool different modes and stuff. Like The Last of Us Part 2 remastered, $10 upgrade fee. I think that's totally fair. $50, I think, if you want it separately. It might be more than that. It might be full 70, I'm not sure. But the $10 upgrade path, I think, is totally fair. For like a remaster of games that already look pretty good, I'm not sure if that works, you know, if that's going to be enough for me. But like, you know, I'm not opposed to it. But thank you again for the super chat. Very much appreciated. So thank you. But all this to say, I think the first person versus third person perspective debate is going to rage, just like it did with Baldur's Gate, just like it did with Starfield, just like it did with all these other games. It's going to be discussed. There's some people that are going to love it. Some people that are going to hate it. If they did third person, people would be rambling about how they're a first person focused studio and they should have done first person for combat. No matter what, there will be people upset. I think what they showed looks great. And the other benefit is that it separates this game from Uncharted, which is important to note. Yes, people are used to this type of game, Tomb Raider or Uncharted, being third person. This game is coming along and being like, yeah, we're going to do first person cutscenes and stuff. It's going to be third. Sure. Easy. And I think that works fine. I think if they're going to differentiate it, this is a good way to do it. And what they showed, honestly, looks pretty good as far as differentiations are concerned. I do think that this seems to catch its own vibe, and the animation quality of the actual hand movements seems really well done. I think it looks really good as far as a first-person game is concerned. And so I can't be mad about it. I think it looks solid. The rest of the game graphically looks very modern. It looks really, really good. Granted, this is most likely running on a high-end PC because this is coming to PC, but everything they've shown looks really good, and I'm actually very excited to play it. Now, some people are saying that this is like, yeah, it looks good, but it's not going to be a huge game or anything. I actually disagree. I'm already seeing the remnants I'm seeing the early stages of mass market appeal. I'm seeing people from college, I mentioned this on the podcast, but people from college that are very casual gamers. They don't really actively play a whole lot. And they are seeing this go around social media today, and they've started texting me and being like, hey, what's this game about? Like one guy I even used to work with in commercial real estate, he texted me in between the podcast and this and was like, so what do I need to be able to play that? And when does it come out? Do you know? Like, that's exactly what they want. They want this to spread through the mass market. And that's how these games become extra huge. So I think they could find some actual success with it. Now, I don't think this appeals to the younger generation that much, but to the 30, 40-year-old gamers, this is going to be a big deal. And I would totally bet that once this game really gets the marketing campaign pushing really, really hard in the lead up to its launch, there's going to be a lot of people going out and buying Xboxes or signing up for Game Pass to be able to play it. There's just, it's a huge franchise, maybe not as big as like a Harry Potter or Star Wars, but still very, very big. And this could potentially be another great thing for Disney to be able to put forward. So I think it looks great. It did exactly what it needed to do. I think every part of it looks really well done. There wasn't anything to really complain about and be concerned by. Just in general, it looks really good. I know, like I said, some people are going to be upset about the first person thing. Other people are going to be, I saw one person saying they weren't going to play it because they didn't want to support Nazis. Guys, the Nazis are the bad guys in this game. Like, I can't believe we have to be saying this, but like, some people are like, yeah, did you see in the opening of the game? I saw somebody on Twitter and they were like, on the opening of the game, they did a freeze frame and they're like, look, these are Nazi insignia. There are Nazis in this game. I'm not going to support it and buy it. Oh my God. Like, bro, what do we do? Yes, they're the bad guys. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, I don't want to support the Nazis, so I'm not going to buy the game where they're the bad guys. What? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. And also, I mean, I get it. You're probably like 13 and live on Tumblr and you've never seen Indiana Jones, but still it was pretty cringy. Like they thought they discovered something by realizing this. It breaks my brain. But in general, I think the game looks really well, really good. I think they presented it well, and I think it does exactly what it needs to do. It's not that easy to take a game that we hadn't heard anything about other than it existed and who was making it, and then to come out with a trailer that shows you exactly what the game's going to be like, shows you gameplay, explains pretty well what the overarching game is going to look like, different locations and scope, and to make it look good while explaining all of that. They actually managed to pull it off, and I think this is a fantastic exclusive for Xbox to have, and it is coming day one to Game Pass. These are the types of exclusives that they really need. This is what could make the platform really, really filled out. And I've already been seeing people, I mentioned this on the podcast as well, I've been seeing people on Twitter/X saying, like, in their well-known PlayStation fanboy accounts, they're like, well, I guess, I've been meaning to get a PC and maybe this is the game I just finally need to get a PC for. Because they're not going to get an Xbox. They can't do that. That would be a crossing a line. But getting a PC to play this, I think you're actually going to see it. And it again reaffirms the goal with Game Pass is not to move Xbox consoles. It's to sell software. And I cannot stress that enough. There's people saying, oh, bringing Hi-Fi Rush to the Switch would be such a blunder because then why buy an Xbox? If you say that, you are displaying a gross misunderstanding of their strategy, of what they're trying to do. They are not trying to sell consoles. They are trying to sell software. And if you happen to buy their console to buy that software, cool. But that's not the goal. The goal is to move the software first and foremost. I really think if Xbox had the ability to just release software and get rid of the Xbox console, they would rather do that. I really don't think that they want to mess around with anything else. And as proof positive of this,
about the hell.
Oh my God, it's so loud. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. Bear in mind, this company is now worth approaching $3 trillion. Okay, it's the most valuable company in the world, and it's under this guy's leadership. He is a wizard of business. Okay, I cannot stress that enough. You don't see him in the media very much. All of that attention is taken by like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and those guys. But this guy is an absolute wizard. Okay, there is no discounting him. We studied the crap out of him in business school, and for good reason. He is a mastermind of everything that he touches. So just hearing him describe what they're doing with Game Pass, tell me if this sounds like they're concerned with selling consoles.
Blizzard.
the thing that's going on in gaming, especially with the close of Activision, Blizzard, and King. We think that now we have the ability to really do what we've always set out to do, which is build great games and deliver them to folks across all platforms, right? Which is Xbox or and consoles, the PCs, and now even including mobile gaming and cloud gaming. So we're excited about the future. We want to do our very best work.
Their whole goal is not to move consoles. We think that now we have the ability to do what we always set out to do. What did they always set out to do? Sell consoles? No. Build great games and deliver them to folks across all platforms. That's their goal. That's what they're trying to do. And they do that through Game Pass. If they can get Game Pass on the PlayStation 5, awesome. Will PlayStation ever let that happen? I don't think so. I really don't think so. But they've probably thrown it out there. They probably tried. I don't think that it would ever happen though, because they're not going to put up with that. So with that having been said, I think this is the start of hopefully a good year for Xbox, and hopefully PlayStation has some stuff up their sleeve and they can show off some really cool stuff, because right now PlayStation doesn't really have much of anything for this year other than like Helldivers 2, Suicide Squad, which they have a marketing deal for, but that is multi-platform, so it's not really exclusive other than the marketing. And beyond that, like The Last of Us Remastered, they just put that out today. But other than that, there's really not a whole lot going on within that. They do have like Stellar Blade. They have crap, what's it called? The game set in China. Phantom Blade, I think is what it's called. They have that. So there's a lot happening. Rise of the Ronin, yeah. Did I make up Phantom Blade? Am I just making that? Yeah, Rise of the Ronin. So there are a couple of games, but they're not first-party games. They're games that they've either bought exclusivity for from a third-party team, or games that they have. Oh, they have Final Fantasy. That's true. They have Final Fantasy. So they have a couple things early in the year, and then they have some third-party games, but they don't have anything currently coming from their big studios, the first-party studios that normally drive console sales, which is surprising. Maybe they come out with that like Atreus, Miles Morales type game in the fall to compete with like Indiana Jones now, and maybe that works. I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting year for sure. It'll either be very dry, or there's a lot of stuff that is unannounced currently that's going to come and really surprise people, I think. So fingers crossed. But Indiana Jones, I think, looks great. And this went, for me, from being a game that I was curious about, but I really did not care one way or the other. And it now is one of my most anticipated games of 2024. I wouldn't quite say hyped, because hype makes you stupid, as you can see. But I do think that this game looks really good. And considering it's on Game Pass day one, it's an absolute steal from what we're seeing right now. Like, absolutely baffling that games like this are going to start to be available on Game Pass day one for no added cost. The fact that they could have charged $70 a piece for this, and they will on Steam and Epic Games if they sell it there. The fact that this is a $70 game you're going to get for no added cost is absolutely crazy. I do expect them to do probably an early access thing, do like 3 days early access if you buy the deluxe edition, just like they did with Starfield. So buckle up for that. I think they're going to do that for any of these major games, because they can get an extra $35 out of people. But yeah, I fully expect that to happen. They want, yeah. So to be clear, Taco BR, I think. I do think they're going to do early access. So it'll be available on Game Pass, but to play it early, you have to pay the extra $35 for the deluxe version. I think they're going to do that again. And I think they're going to continue to do that for all of these major games, I think. Yeah. So end of segment. Should we check in on Suicide Squad, see how it's going? Okay, Jacob, you can cut this into the montage. Okay, so we just finished that segment. Let's see where they're at with Suicide Squad. He's floating around 14,000. He's been at 14,000 for a little bit. I don't know what his normal numbers are. Does anyone know what his normal numbers are? Is this better or worse than he normally has on stream? I'm not sure.
They've been soul harvested by Brainiac, leaving only a shadow of their forms.
I see. That's kind of Frozen.
So he's asking the. See, this is what drives me crazy. When I played with my friends, you just get to the position and you have to stand around waiting. Enemy intel.
Okay, new enemy. Is this intel important to the mission where it's saying enemy intel and suppression units are the troopers?
Yes, that was giving you a bit of information about
The shotgun
types of
guys.
enemies you're going to see. Exactly.
Okay.
So they're actively asking questions that were revealed during the playtest that I played, which makes me wonder if they were even given access to the tutorial section. Like, I thought that this was endgame stuff. They're running with like legendary gear. They're running with a lot of like endgame gear. Did they just like restart the story but with endgame characters? Is that what they did? I'm thoroughly confused. Normal is around 20k. Okay, he might pick up and get there within a couple of hours. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I'm still just so surprised that all of the encounters are the same as what we've seen before. Like, I was really excited that we were going to see endgame stuff with the map changed and totally different abilities and stuff. But so far, it just looks like absolutely more of the same. And to hear them asking basic questions that are revealed during the tutorial either makes me think that they played the tutorial and didn't really pay attention, which is weird considering that they're making enough to like buy a mansion in cash for doing this sponsored stream. So I don't think, and Shroud to me seems like a professional, so I don't think he would have done that. It makes me wonder if they did anything other than like the quick character tutorial. Like, did they really only do the movement tutorials and learn how to like operate the menus and then jump into the end game? That to me seems to defeat the purpose of giving them the access to the end game, which is to show what high level gameplay looks like, you know? Is that not weird? It seems strange to me. It's a weird approach. Really weird approach. They're playing. Hold on. Oh, I just scrolled. Okay, they are playing this mission first and then hopping into endgame after. Okay, so they're doing early game stuff first and then they'll move endgame. So that makes me think that they definitely did not play like the play test 3 hours first. They're doing all of this for the first time. But then again, I'm not listening to the full stream, so maybe they explain this one way or the other. If anybody knows, let me know. And the stream's frozen. Is it just for me? Oh no, his own chat is roasting it. Oh no. That's a lot of damage. Is it just me? What happened? It's frozen. Okay, there it goes. I don't know, Twitch being Twitch. It has polished for sure, but this game is 5 years too late to the looter shooter. I wish them the best, but it should be free to play. If it were free to play, I wouldn't have any problems with this, other than I think it was a waste of time for them to do all of this, but still. It's crazy. They probably have legendary drops on high for this playtest. Probably, but they also already gave them all legendary gear. So that's what he showed at the very top of the stream, is that the characters they were loading into this mission with have endgame gear. So I guess they're doing like an early game mission with endgame characters first, and then they'll do an endgame mission or series of missions. That's what it seems to be, but I don't know. It's just, the whole approach is a little strange because I think it's good to show endgame. I think in the format of hiring a streamer to do it, it's probably not the like best approach, but I don't know, man. I don't know. They finished it.
Yeah, there's got to be a bug. My score is way too low. Something weird's going on.
Talk to me about it. We're adding it.
There's something weird. Y'all got to check the code. Something, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy, right? But
How many characters? It's just these
so
4.
easily replicatable, right? It just happens so many times.
all right, Derek. All right.
Does that not look like it started as a loot box? That looked like it started as a loot box.
It's just these 4 characters: Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, and King Shark. And this has a small tie-in to the other Rocksteady games. It's set 5 years story-wise. It's set 5 years after Arkham Knight, which is kind of fun for any of the Arkham trilogy kind of players. I haven't played Arkham Knight since it came out, so I'm not even sure what happened, but it might be worth revisiting. But then again, you know, I'm more about the action. Get me in there rather than the story.
It's always just so surprising to me that like these companies will do this. I don't know, maybe if they're continuing to do it, it's got to be because it works, right? Like it's got to work. But it's just so surprising to me that after a really poorly received playtest and like preview event with streamers, YouTubers, TikTokers, and media, they decide to try again. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best play, honestly. Maybe their audiences, I don't really know Shroud's audience. I don't know Lupo's audience or the other guy's audience. So I don't know if they're more forgiving or if they're more inclined to like this type of game. Obviously, these guys play live service like shooters mostly on stream, so their audiences are kind of preconditioned for that. But if he's known for like, I don't know, let's just say CSGO 2 or something, and that's what he mostly plays, imagine how amazing this game has to be to pull somebody out of that game and start playing this. It would have to be one of the best games ever made because their whole channel and their whole content is built around that. Valorant is what he does. Okay, Valorant. Like imagine how good, Valorant is really good. Imagine how good this game would have to be to pull him away for a few months minimum to play this game. And bear in mind, like their goal is for this to have at least a year of support, preferably years of support. You know, it's just crazy. Unlocked a new charm. I'm looking at this loadout. So you have grenade, melee something, firearm 2, firearm 1, shield modifier, traversal modifier, neck bomb modifier, lucky charm. And this current one he has selected, the grenade, is the bang, is what it's called. Damage of 135,311 to 149,000 to 555. Impact, 24 meter range, radius of 20 meters. It has plus 14.5% grenade damage to grunt enemies, plus 17.5% grenade damage. Limited to carrying 1 grenade at a time, but each grenade does 500% damage and has a 100% bigger explosion radius. And deep freeze, you hold G and throw an affliction grenade. I don't know, man. I don't know. Lobster Man, thank you, my friend. Glad to have you, my friend. Thank you. So we'll see. We'll check in here again in a little bit, see if they're doing actual end game content, because so far it looks like they're just playing early game missions. Or maybe that's that could be the worst thing, is that if the end game missions just look like early game missions, that kind of says all you need to say about the mission design. With all this, my biggest frustration is that the mission designs are just, there's nothing novel or particularly interesting about it. It's just generic looter shooter type missions where it's like, oh, rescue Argus agents, and you can't have casualties in that. You got to make sure that you avoid the casualties, otherwise you get lower payouts of XP and equipment. And then all of the enemies are just coming in waves, just more and more of that. And for some players I think it's fun, but for me this just looks like super tedious. And again, every single helicopter has a glowing purple zit because of course. Again, his audience doesn't seem that supportive. Maybe these aren't his audience. Maybe it's people like me that are coming in and checking it out. Yeah, and then the glowing zits on the tank. We'll see. We'll check in here in a little bit, see what they're at. I don't know, man. It's not winning me over currently, but I guess we'll see. He looks kind of bored. I've seen some Shroud streams and stuff. I think that's his face. So I don't think that's, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he's being like bored or like hamming up boredom while being paid to play a game. You know, it's like, it is weird when you go to those preview events. Like, I haven't been to an event that they've paid me to like be on camera like that for. Even when I went to the Avatar thing, like there was not a check. There wasn't any payment. Like they were just like, do you want to come to this thing? I'm like, yeah. So I've never been like paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to play a game and just do that. But I would imagine for that, like there's a weird pressure to not necessarily be positive, but at the very least to not be really negative. Like the understanding is that you need to, I think you need to be just not a dick. You know, like there's an expectation that even if you see something that you would normally be like, that sucks ass, you're not going to be like that big of a prick because you're being paid to be there, you know, like you're not going to crap where you eat basically. And in this case, like, I don't know if the same pressure applies there or if there were guidelines, because sometimes you sign contracts to clarify that you're not going to do those things and not cross those lines. But I don't know. The whole thing is just very strange to me, and I don't know if this is going to do what they needed to do. But then again, they're fighting an uphill battle. A lot of people already have their minds made up, positive or negative, and at this point, I think they're just trying to find an audience that could potentially be convinced to play the game and to enjoy it. And that might be this group. It might be the audiences of people like Dr. Lupo and Shroud and the other guy. It might be that they could do it. I'm not sure. But they're trying. So we'll check in here in a little bit and see what's up. Okay. New segment. Let's talk about Avowed for a few minutes, okay? Let's do that. I'm also going to close the window, I think. Okay. So, at the Xbox event yesterday, we got a new look at Avowed. Now, Avowed is a game we've been talking about for a little while. In my humble opinion, I don't think it's looked particularly good in the past. To me, it feels like the initial trailer they did, you know, the one in the dark cave. Let me see if I can pull that up. That initial trailer, the announcement trailer, that one looked pretty good. This was 3 years ago, July 23rd of 2020. This is when they just popped off during that E3 type of event. Like this, it looks really dark and gritty, almost as if it was hitting the Gwitty, almost. And, you know, they show this fantasy stuff. They fire the arrow. Notice none of this looks super colorful. It's very dark and depressive and serious in tone. The color palette is very muted and flat. And people's reaction to this was generally very, very positive. People saw this, especially this shot was gorgeous. People saw this and were like, oh, hell yeah. I love the look of this. And then it lands, and granted, this is a cinematic. This is not in-game or gameplay or anything. But it transitions to the sword and the magic. And people are like, oh my God, is this like a new sort of Elder Scrolls game? And then we see that it's from Obsidian. And people connect the two and are like, oh, this is basically Obsidian's version of Elder Scrolls. And of course, they didn't want to avoid that comparison because that's what they would love people to think. And so they're like, yeah, that's totally what it is. And this is the last we saw of it for like a couple years or a year and a half or whatever it was this trailer, this logo that I think actually looks pretty good. Nice, clean metallic. The metal has like a texture to it. I think it looks good. This was exciting. I think we were all generally pretty excited. And then we got another trailer, a gameplay trailer that I think left people generally a little less excited. Let me go here. And here we go. So remember how muted and flat all the colors were, how the color palette was very, very muted and restrained. Then we got this. In-game footage and cinematics. And frankly, it doesn't look like the same game at all. Like, not even close. In terms of tone, in terms of color palette, in terms of graphical fidelity, like everything just is very different. Which I don't know if that reflects that there was a difference in like approach or art design, or if maybe that original trailer just was not indicative of exactly what they were going for. But other segments like this, you know, this to me reminds me a lot of The Outer Worlds, this sort of fauna and the bright, colorful nature of it. It's not bad. It's just very different because, again, this is very, very different to like this very flat, dark, depressive look. You know, these are very different looking games. This is cinematic, but the point of a cinematic is to try and communicate tone, feeling, the world building, the setting, all of that stuff. You can do a much better job of evoking that emotion, basically. And instead, we got a game that just looks like The Outer Wilds, but in fantasy. Again, not bad, just very different. And I think this is why some people went from, ooh, I love the vibe of this. This is cool. A really dark, intense, gritty fantasy game in first person coming from a team that's amazingly good at RPGs. I love it. I love The Witcher, and now I'm going to get this. This is awesome. And then they get something much more colorful and cartoony in its presentation. Again, because people are going to take it out of context. Not bad, but not the same. So those people that were initially really excited are probably disappointed now because they feel as though it was presented incorrectly or not accurately at the very least. Or things changed in a way where now it doesn't look the same. And this gameplay, I think, left people kind of mixed because it was just so different, and it's fine. But this also was paired with a change in marketing approach where they started stressing, instead of this is our version of the Elder Scrolls, they started saying this is similar to what New Vegas was and similar to the Outer Worlds. This is a sort of game. It's focused on depth, not breadth. Okay. It's focused on trying to give you deeper choices, morally gray decisions to make, companions that are interesting, a world that's not necessarily vast, but that's dense. And that's what we're trying to do with a smaller budget. And there is a place for that in gaming, and those types of games are important to have. And I think it's great. But that is a very different thing than this is a better version of Elder Scrolls, or this is the New Vegas of Elder Scrolls, which is what people have been really, really hoping for. So they're changing their approach and how they're trying to explain it. As for whether it ends up being basically New Vegas for Elder Scrolls, but with a different IP, maybe it does. Maybe it is that the writing and the consequences and everything are so good that it pulls out of that. But it's just different. And I think that's why it kind of is coming out of the gate kind of limping a little bit, because they started off really strong, sprinting, the gates spring open, they're sprinting super fast. Everybody's like, oh, I love this cinematic trailer. This looks awesome. And then once they get a better look at it, they realize, oh, it's actually super cartoony and maybe a little more lighthearted and arcadey and video gamey instead of grounded and gritty. And so some people are like falling off and starts limping a little, like, oh, it could still be good. We can catch back up. We can hit our stride again, but it's just hit a road bump, right? And now we got this latest trailer at the event yesterday. Now, my humble opinion, you don't have to agree with me, I think this trailer looks way better than the last one. I saw this and I was like, okay, here we go. I see the vision now. This makes sense. I feel like pretty much everything they showed off, not only was it the environments graphically, I think they were really, really good. It seemed polished. It seemed like it was missing the jankiness of a lot of Obsidian games in a good way. You can see this shot here presents a huge, vast expanse all the way out there. Presumably you can explore all of this with like a temple or something at the very top. That's cool. There's a lot of scope here, seemingly. And I think that is awesome. We've seen these lizard guys repeatedly, environments that are super varied. That's super cool. And they show some combat and actual gameplay, and the gameplay looks really good. Now, one thing I heard Paul Tassi describe this as in his article for Forbes, he said that this game felt to him almost as if it was a VR game. Just how the camera moves, how the combat is a little more stiff. To him, it felt like a VR game. And I kind of get that. I kind of get it. It's one of those games where I think the FOV is a little too tight with how it currently is arranged. So it looks like a scripted sequence for a VR game that they're trying to promote. But to be clear, this is not a VR game. This is a first person, like magic / melee, not even shooter game, but you know, it's a focused on that type of combat. The actual enemy encounter seems fine. You know, there's hordes to fight of little lizard creatures. It seems serviceable. There's no doubt there. It seems like there's a lot of variability and combinations to be had with combining shields and swords and then wands. You can dual wield wands for different magical effects, or dual wield swords if you want. It seems pretty robust. I know some people were saying it looks a little clunky and stuff. I think that that's more how they've captured the footage here than anything else. I think this looks like a game that when you're actually playing it feels a lot better. But I do think a wider FOV would serve the presentation of the game a little better and look much less scripted than anything else. It's one of those things that you can't really put your finger on it until you realize how tight the FOV actually is. And I think that's because they can crank the fidelity higher on console, for example, when the FOV is a little tighter. But I don't think it does the best for making the game look like an actual video game. You know, I think it looks much more scripted than it actually probably is. Maybe this is super scripted, in which case I'm a little bummed. But the fact that they're showing so many varied locations and actual gameplay makes me feel like they're confident this is what the game's going to look like when you actually play it. So I think that is perfect. I think that's perfect. As for all of this, they go through some other stuff. Specifically, they delve into some narrative elements, because that's kind of where their games typically exceed, is with narrative consequence and story branching and that type of thing. And I feel like this presentation was okay in terms of how they framed it. There's sort of an uncanny valley thing going on here. I talked about this in the podcast, but what I think is happening is that the texture quality is pretty high on pretty much everything. So if we zoom in here, I mean, you can see there's actual like scales on his skin that are being rendered in, even inside of his ear. Even in his ear, the texture is high enough quality that they're rendering that in. So I think the texture quality is really high. The cloth looks really good. All of this looks really good, except for the mouth and the teeth, which don't look anywhere near as good as the rest of it. The eyes look a little flat in comparison to everything else. And the facial animations, the lip syncing is just ever so slightly stiff. And so it combines in this sort of uncanny valley feeling. Some people say the audio feels off. I'll let you be the judge of that.
Manu, Kiri, Naoki, and me. Training under Captain Ruiki. Trying to keep Thirdborn safe.
In other words, you're a gang of vigilantes. Not that I'm one to judge.
Here. Take my badge.
To me, what this sounds like, at least with the headphones I'm wearing, this feels like they're playing it with like mono audio set or with like a very tight stereo lineup. And so you're not getting the full dynamic range of the audio. Is it a big deal? No. Similar things happened in the trailers for Hogwarts Legacy, and then when we got the game, it ended up being better than we expected. So I'm not going to dismiss the game because the current audio balancing in this trailer sounds a little off. Because this is something that can be fixed in the lead up to the launch or in your settings in the menu when you have the game, presuming that there actually are settings like that. So I think that there's a little bit of something like that going on. The balancing is just a little weird. Sometimes that's done by mistake. Other times it's done on purpose, because in these types of formats of these live streams, they know a lot of people are going to be listening to their to the show on their phones, and phones need different balancing for it to sound ideal. So this is something like when I watched the clip on my phone, it sounded better than when I was wearing headphones, because you have to balance audio differently, and they might have just decided balance it for the head or for the phone instead of headphones. I don't know if that was the right decision or not, but there's all sorts of potential explanations for why that happened. As for the actual writing and everything, it seems well written. It seems like there are actual consequences within the story. That's cool, and frankly, that's why you play a game like this.
In the cave by the water last night, and as we were sleeping, we were ambushed by those miserable Zorips. I was so surprised, and it was so dark. I just got separated from everyone else. Look, I can't face those monsters alone, but I have to know if anyone else made it out. Of course he did. Sergeant Asui never has a thought he won't say out loud. So what did he tell you? That Captain Ruiki was sick? That I was paranoid? That I was a dumb baby? I heard it all often and loudly. Wait, if you found Sergeant Asui, why is he not here with you? What happened?
At the end of the quest, you have a choice. When you
I get it, kid. No one knows how they'll react until their first battle. Who can blame you? Man. So, as for whether this bugs you or is adequate for concern, I think is up to you. This is much less of a, this doesn't make sense in game design, like the Starfield constant loading screens. That's something I feel like you can point to objectively, and anybody looking at it critically is going to go, yeah, constant load screens are a net negative. It's just not great. With this, it's like the audio balancing is a little off. Is that enough for you to like lose interest in the game? That's up to you. I would encourage you not to dismiss the game at this point, because I don't think that that is a sin that can be unfixed. It seems like this is something that can be balanced closer to launch. So I would rest assured there that there's improvements that can be made. The other thing is that this looks way better than when we saw it last summer. And so even if this game is coming later this year, or maybe it's delayed to next year, they've shown that they can make massive improvements in just a year's time. So if it looks okay now, it might look awesome and amazing in a year's time. We don't know that for a fact, but there's the potential there. In this case, you still should never be hyped for anything, but I don't think it's fair to dismiss this game out of hand at this point. Okay? That's my official stance on that. Other stuff they show some varied environments, and again, I feel like they've actually settled into their art style a little bit. Last summer, I feel like they showcased some weird things that made it feel like there wasn't a cohesive art style, but this actually, I feel, does a better job of
found
framing
inspiration in a wide swath of real-world cultures, helping us create a unique RPG experience. By contrasting the vibrant with the dull, or verdant spaces with sickly ones, we can better deliver complex emotional experiences for our players. The Living Lands is a continent of untamed valleys with widely varied biomes, from luxuriant forests to volcanic wastes, and each of those regions itself is a conflux of storied landscapes. All of the regions have a lot of special things associated with them, but I have a deep place in my heart for Shatterscarp. As you're wandering the wastes of Shatterscarp, you might notice off in the distance a vibrant jewel of color. By transitioning from destitute, muted tones of a wasteland of sand and marching in towards a beautiful oasis, there's the opportunity there for life, for adventure, and even a little danger.
We hope you've enjoyed this look at.
And I think that, again, that looks way better than last year. I still, honestly, and this is just because you guys know me, I like the dark, gritty stuff. This, to me, I personally would have preferred. I don't know what it is, but it seems like every studio and every artist nowadays is like, I want to create a fantasy world that's vibrant and magical. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I'm not that interested in that. I like a fantasy magical world where anything's possible, and yet it's still burdened by the realities of human existence, by good and evil, by the drudges of society. They're still present there. I understand some people might not like that. They might like a world. I understand some people might not like that, and they might like a world that is just like, ooh, it's all glitter and rainbows and everything. Personally, I like the stuff that is a little more grounded. But that's a personal preference, because some games try to allow you to fully escape the elements and the realities of this world. But when you're talking about storytelling, I feel like conflict and good and evil, those are concepts that are necessary in storytelling. And to have some darker world building, and to have something that evokes sort of a more solemn feeling when you look out upon the vast expanse, that's something that I feel like we don't get very often anymore in the fantasy space. And I'm here for it if we ever get it again. But it feels like The Witcher is really the only franchise that's willing to double down on it. Even something like Baldur's Gate, of course, set in the Forgotten Realms and, you know, tied to D&D, there are limitations to what they can do because of that world. Now, I do think D&D is epic and awesome, but I do like the darker, more gritty stuff. And Thin Blue 42, you see where I'm going with this. This is a great way to transition into something that is nothing but dark and gritty in the form of Hellblade 2, which we'll cover in the next segment / stream clip. So let's get into that. End of segment. Like, you guys like that? Okay, let's bounce back in. Let's see. Oh, they're talking. Okay, we're in here with the Suicide Squad. Let's see what they're saying.
Taters that you're adding, are you adding them, or is it just kind of like it gets added and then you have to kind of adapt as you go?
Yes, you can see what they can be. I believe there's like 6 that are going to be at the start, but they're going to change as the seasons progress, which is like one of the key parts of Endgame, is that obviously this is a game that has ongoing free content that's going to be coming for, you know, for months and months after release, at least. Okay. And the Metropolis is going to be constantly evolving. New characters are going to be playable for free once you've bought the game. New environments. New weapons, new gear, new loadouts. Is a really, really expansive year 1 package that we're going to lay out soon.
Is it launching with 4 characters?
Launching with 4 characters, correct.
Did I just
increase over
I just
time.
heard I just heard new characters. That's cool.
Sorry?
New characters, you said they're going to come out?
There will be. There will be.
That's cool. Okay.
Are they going to play some Endgame?
Sorry, they're swapping our stuff real quick.
Is it just me, or do they seem like super weirdly bored? Like, I haven't watched a ton of these, so I don't want this to just be my bias of like this. How do these 3 dudes look like the same dude? Like, I don't know if it's just me and my bias, so I want to be clear about that up front. But it seems like they're in the waiting room to go and get a colonoscopy. Not that they're being paid, at the very least, tens of thousands of dollars to play and promote a video game that they're enjoying, hopefully. Like, is it not really weird? It feels like there's a weird tension in the space. It's really, really strange. Really, really weird. I don't know, man. I mean, Shroud looks a bit out when he's focused on whatever he's doing, but those other guys, yeah. And that's to be, like, I'm trying to be very transparent. I don't know. I think you guys were saying that this is Dr. Lupo, right? And then this is like Tarek, something like that. And so I think Dr. Lupo plays just a bunch of shooters. You guys were saying he's one of the top Valorant players, and Shroud also plays a lot of just shooters and stuff. Lupo plays Destiny and stuff. This is Lupo. Okay. Sorry, I don't spin in the like Twitch circles very much, so I'm not super familiar. I think Lupo's on YouTube though. But yeah, it's very interesting to me.
Well, I'm not in the lobby, but I'm sure you can invite me.
I will do. Will be 1 or 2 minutes, then I'll invite you in.
Perfect. How do you like it so far? It's cool. It's cool. Deadshot is... I still haven't really figured them out yet. It seems like there's a lot of different, like, let me show you my screen. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I'm gonna show you anyway. I think I am. Well, yeah, I think we're fine. I'm gonna click this. So like if you go to talents here. Oh, my talents reset. Oh, I need to pick these again.
So they gave him a bunch of talents to use.
I think every time they come in and they change some stuff, my talents reset again. So I'm just gonna really quickly go ahead and pick them again.
See, so like,
need them.
so like this is what they're saying is like the key to building your character, and you can see that you have points in each of these. So it's not like you have to choose one branch or the other. But basically, like each of these are damage multipliers, it looks like. And row 9, 8, 6, 3, and 1 are all single option upgrades. So 5 of the upgrades everybody is going to get by the end of the game. And the other 5 offer 2 choices. So there really is not much variability here. There really is not. What is that? Like 2 to the 5th total differences in terms of builds? Like that really is not that much. It really is not. So like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. There's like 32 potential layouts for each, like this skill tree. And then of this, there are some differences. This one has 3 options in it. This bottom row has 3 options. This is 3 options. This is 3 options. But it seems like each of the ones, like the one he has paused here, at 20 times combo and higher, grenade damage is increased by 50% while airborne. And then, recommended playstyle bomber. So they have some overarching playstyles they recommend, which in this case is the bomber playstyle. And then you're going to kind of select these based off of that playstyle. So however many of these playstyles they have is what they've balanced it around. And how many of those are they going to have? Like 5, 10 different playstyles? Like what could it be? Like there's like 6 currencies. Yeah, this, it seems like I don't remember what it was for the playtest I did. They didn't have the store tab open, so you couldn't even look at that if you wanted to. Looks was there, but these different currencies, my understanding, are used for certain upgrades to your guns and loadout basically, and different modifiers and stuff. And then these currencies can be spent on different looks and cosmetic stuff.
Wait, I like Dr. Lupo's skin. What the fuck?
Hell yeah, man. Let's go. Classic, baby. Giving mad Carrot Top vibes right now.
Jesus, currency hell. It reminds me of Gotham Knights.
So look good, feel good.
Sharing is caring.
Looking good, doing bad.
Squad kills are applied to all characters in your squad regardless of their level.
Yes, sir.
Well,
yes.
Something like that.
He's still at about 14,000. You guys were saying he's normally at like 20?
Dude, I don't even know if I can take myself seriously right now.
Okay, so now they're going
like
in.
You in real life, no?
Okay, dude, come on now.
So this is an endgame mission that they're going out on. They're talking with Lex Luthor.
Oh, they swapped my weapons. I'm assuming I should keep what was swapped out for me.
I'm gonna keep on what was put on.
So some things are different. There's like these huge fiery burning things.
A pink rifle, sniper.
Are they just resetting tutorials every time that they load in? It's got to be a bug, right? It's got to be a bug. Surely you can turn these off because like they're late in the game and they're still having tutorials pop up.
Yeah, on purpose, I think, for this.
Yeah, we picked you out with appropriate loot for endgame.
Yeah, so this is endgame.
Okay, so they didn't put me on the pink and purple ones. They put me on I'm still on legendary. Is that okay, or should I switch?
Go into your menu real quick. Let me just double check. Okay. If you're not in the middle of combat.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Conquer
so
Elseworld missions. That's the objective.
Yeah, they did that earlier and pulled it up.
No.
Must be some
on Endgame.
Yeah,
I'm hitting
and
the.
that's just the golds. I was just asking, do you want me to kick it up?
I mean, feel free to go into the loadouts and pick anything that you want to try. If you want to try out some notorious weapons, go for it, man.
Yes, sir.
Someone's got it out for you, Lupo. They want you bottom of the leaderboard every time.
I know.
Yeah,
See, that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, dude.
Yeah, they put the Bizarro's Undeath Ray for me.
Yeah, I'm on yellow. Should I go for the pinks then?
Wait,
No slide canceling trash.
I got hooked up.
Well, just as I thought. Trash.
I'm trying to figure out how this death ray works. Wait, how does this death ray work? It changes my reticle.
I mean, just as even ignoring the ult fire, the standard weapon of
But it
the
doesn't shoot.
Undeath Ray is insane. It does so much damage.
I'm trying to understand how this alternative fire works.
Cute. Dude, I don't understand why they're letting a bunch of professional players play endgame without letting them play a lot of the game, you know? Like, if you're already paying them for a day of their time, pay for 2 days of their time and ask them to play like 12 hours of the game so they fully understand every mechanic headed into the end game. And if the game is really good, they're going to love it. And they're going to be like, hell yeah, I wish I could play 24 hours of the game for prep. And then they're going to go on the day and showcase everything they've learned and prepared for and just kill it, you know? So she's going to stand on it and now he's got to wait for everybody? Or can he warp everybody over?
Would you guys like me to start this?
Over to you.
Oh.
Oh, wait. I want to pause it. Okay, pause. So, conquer Elseworld missions. This is the endgame content, apparently. Mission brief. Extreme weather. That's the modifier to it. Grunt +1 and then brute 1. I don't know what that means. Does that mean total, like, difficulty level? I'm not sure what that means. Let's see. Complete high risk, high reward incursion missions on an Elseworld. Resources, you get XP, 3x, this much currency, this much crafting materials. Difficulty bonus, if you select a higher difficulty, they're currently on best pay attention difficulty level. If you select a higher difficulty, you get 2% bonus XP. Wow. That's a lot. There's a lot of bonus. And then 5% bonus credits, 3% bonus precious alloys, 2% bonus Kaluan crystal, 1% bonus B technology, and 1% bonus inertron.
You all need to go in and pay 1,000 because I already paid mine.
Correct. Yeah, we all need to go in and pay.
Got it.
Simply put, we've killed one of his bodies. Together, this
Got it.
Got it.
petty tyrant's mind. My friends in Metropolis.
Okay.
And anyone who can hear this broadcast, the war
Got it. So this game has like a whole, it's like a whole thing.
Right.
This
so
game,
Shroud, you need to
I'm
go back
understanding
in.
it.
Cough up your fair share as well.
To pay Prometheum to get access to the mission. So it's like a wager. You put currency up and that gives you access to the mission. After Baldur's Gate 3, if you can't talk to animals, I'm not playing your game. It does spoil you, doesn't it? It does spoil you. Thank you for that. If this is Endgame so familiar, wow, not touching it. It is funny how samey it is. Spencer, also thank you for the 2. Sorry I missed that. Let's see. What do you think of the Avowed combat animations? Very stiff. Very, very stiff. Hopefully it's just how they framed it with the tight FOV or something, but yeah, very stiff. Yeah, this is sad what I'm seeing, sticking with a hard no. Yeah. Are they gonna...
On the 2nd,
Best
and
pay
then the
attention to
deluxe.
difficulty, by the way.
The deluxe
Alright, I'm
edition
just gonna
is the
reload my
30th.
You have to pay for
Okay.
missions?
We're just having a quick tech issue, but we'll be loaded right back in.
You have to pay
Okay,
for
let me go
mission.
look at how to use this shotgun.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys were just listening to how this works, but this is kind of the end game loop of the game. So it sounds like from what I'm hearing that this game is kind of like it wants you to keep going and wants you to keep playing and checking out the new content and seasons as they
Like a
come
live
out.
service.
So you keep coming back, and this is like a loop of you get the currency, you spend the currency to get more cool stuff, and then you just do that And it's like a typical, you know, it's like your looter shooter, right? Like it's you spend some stuff to get some stuff, and then you see how hard the difficulty is going to get, and you can see how good your build's going to be and whatnot.
Man,
I believe Derek is having a tech issue right now. We're trying to start up this mission. We are playing on a different build, so it's not like it's like it's still kind of a dev build, I believe, which is why we're doing a little stuff.
Man, it's kind of hurting. Well, I want to see what this mission's like, because if this mission is so cool that it's like, oh, this is why you play for 100 hours. Awesome. I'm sold. But as of right now, I'm like, so you're grinding for these resources, and that's all. Like they just had the speech from Lex Luthor. Brainiac is still speaking, so you don't defeat Brainiac at the end of the game. It seems you're gonna still leave Lex Luthor and Brainiac out there, and you're still doing missions to fight him, I guess is the point. Just a little strange. Oh, are they loading in? Show me the mission. Convince me. So, spoilers. Apparently, they're not that worried about the story if they're willing to show this stuff before launch. No, they're pulling all the way back out. Okay. Yeah, it's a dev build still 10 days away from release. To be fair, a lot of these dev builds, they load out like weeks ahead of time. So it's not the same as what you might think, where it's like, oh, the game's not even close to ready, and you know, they're 10 days away. It's still broken whenever they do this. They probably had this build set like back in October because they knew that they were going to be doing this event. Like that would be my guess. It's a looter shooter. There's not a story. Well, there is until you get to the really cool, allegedly looter shooter stuff. Like there is a story, which is the only good part as far as I can tell of the game. Everything else is like thoughts on the indie game being FPS versus third. Oh, Indiana Jones game. We just did a whole segment on it earlier in the stream. So if you want like my extended thoughts, you can see that because I ramble about it for a bit. But quick Spark Notes thoughts is just that I think it was the right choice considering the game's coming from Machine Games. I think that was the right play. So I'm not mad about it. I know some people are very passionate about third person. I think it was the right choice though. Like they know how to make really good first person shooter games, and now it's going to have first person combat. And so, yeah, they chose to make it first person for combat. Like I'm not surprised by that. In the same way, like if Larian was making it, it would probably be mostly a top down turn based combat system. Like that's probably what it would be because that's what they're good at. That's what they specialize in. So no part of it is surprising. I'm just like, yeah. If Brainiac's still alive in the story, well, like even if it just with these live service games, the stupid thing is that they have to have a way for the game to not resolve totally after the story's over, because they have to have years of content available. If they want to keep telling stories for years and years, they have to have all of that stuff available. So what it seems like they're doing here is that they have these alternate universes that you warp into, which a lot of people have been predicting as how they're going to avoid the consequences of killing the Justice League. They just bring them back in an alternative universe, which is what they're doing here, where you just popped into what they're calling an else world. So an alternative world. And then you have to complete these objectives. So complete incursion, sending a signal. You have a 15-minute timer. What are we doing for 15 minutes? All of the predictions that people made about this game that they thought they were being like too dismissive and nasty. Like, oh, they're just going to do an alternative universe to get rid of all the consequences for the story. People said that like half jokingly, and it looks like it's true. Okay, everybody stand in the circle and wait. Okay. Lex is talking.
You know, you could just talk to someone. Not me, though.
Suicide Squad in space.
What's the Earth Ranger? Flies in the ointment.
70 charges, we got 5 minutes. Oh, yes.
How do we reach the charges?
Get to the charges?
Got it.
How do we do that thing? You kill stuff. That's the game. You just go around and you shoot stuff until you reach some arbitrary limit, and then you get your payout, and you do that. For them, they want for years while they work on expansions and probably more story stuff to bring in new players. But like this is apparently the game. This is the end game that you're supposed to grind for. I cannot begin to tell you how underwhelmed I am. Like, what? This is what they've been working on? Like, I'm genuinely kind of shocked that this is all there is to the end game. Granted, this is one mission we've seen a minute of so far, but like, seriously, it's just Elseworlds. So not even the core Metropolis map, it seems. You're going to these Elseworlds that are little like dimensional rifts in the multiverse, and you just zip around fighting waves of enemies. It's just the most generic thing ever. Like, I know some people are going to be like, well, this is what looter shooters are. This is what they do. This is how all of these games work. I get that, but that doesn't necessarily make it good. And it also, like, you would hope that they would have innovated somehow and there would be something different that makes this game really worth tackling. But it seems like it's just the most generic of generic looter shooter. And I'm just... Man. Yeah, I don't know, man. I keep, like, I think this is why it's just such an emotional roller coaster for me, because, like, I keep hoping that they convince me and win me over, and just time and time again, I'm just let down, and I just need to stop it's hoping that they win me over, I guess. I don't know, man. Wonderful Obama. My stance is the same as it has been for months at this point. I think that the game does well in terms of initial units sold, because I think a lot of people will pay this, will buy this at $70 to try it, because it shows well in trailers that show the story. So I think there's going to be plenty of people that buy it for $70 at launch and try it. But I think after they finish the story, they're going to stop playing. And like, not many people who are playing this game for the story are going to look at this and be like, ooh, this is worth playing for months. And so people are just going to move on. And again, for a live service game, they need you to always be playing, to continually play, bouncing from mission to mission, constantly grinding and leveling up. That's what has to happen for it to be financially viable. And if you're not, that doesn't work. It just doesn't. Hope makes you stupid. Yeah, kind of. I don't know. This game will be the final nail in the game of ball. It depends on how much money they've spent on it. I think they've clearly spent a ton of money on it, but like, I think they'll get a pretty good payout up front. I think a lot of people are going to buy it at $70. So they'll probably say, ooh, we have 2 million players and we're super proud of the response, and they're going to have a lot of stuff like that. But I think that it's going to really fail in the long run, because I just don't see anybody who's looking at this being like, yeah, this is what I want to play for years. And for a live service game, that's the worst thing that could happen, is that somebody walks away from it. So, because like, at least if you go free to play, you get a new wave of players in, hopefully. But if you have people that were interested enough to pay $70 for it up front, and then they walk away, people who didn't pay anything for it are going to walk away far more frequently. And so if you can't even win over that initial wave of players that were really interested, willing to put money up, you know, you're probably not going to find a lot of long-term success. It is also very chaotic, yeah. But I mean, it is endgame. You'd expect there to be a lot going on in the endgame. Lots of different like stacking effects and everything. There's some sort of Joker effect going on with all the haha writing everywhere. What do I think they'll do next? I mean, it's hard to say, honestly, because even if this game, let's just say, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's just say this game only sells like 50,000 copies somehow, and it's just a colossal failure in every way, and nobody's playing it from launch indefinitely. They already have the first year of content at least, not just planned, but actively being worked on, and like they're preparing it. So we're going to get a year of content almost certainly through 2024. And at that point, they probably reevaluate and figure out what they're going to do. Yeah, 100-star games is what the founders went off and did. They failed.
I think,
I'm not gonna lie, I got lost in sauce.
I'll be honest, I think we needed to focus one of them down because we were we were splitting all that damage and we couldn't just we just needed to kill one.
I thought I was shitting on them and then I died.
Yep. That's okay. We go again, right?
We go again, boys.
Yeah, there also seems to be a glaring issue that these devs don't seem to understand that there can't be hundreds of live service games coexisting. It's not possible. I totally agree. There is a limited pool of players that play these types of games. And that's why I've said, like, everybody that's at this little event, Shroud, Tarek, and Dr. Lupo, they have audiences built around, like, Valorant or CSGO 2 or Overwatch or whatever they play. And that they're not just like, they don't just like those games, and they haven't just put thousands of hours into those games, understanding them and figuring out how to play them in the best way possible. But their audiences are built around those games. Their audiences are probably watching the streamer play it while they play it on their computer. Okay. So, and they're watching it because they're interested in it, and they're interested in it because they're watching it. You know, it's a self-fulfilling loop, and you can't just take those people over. Not only, like, if the streamer plays Suicide Squad and loves it, awesome, but they can't just do that if their audience isn't interested in it. And vice versa. If the audience, or if the streamer is just, they hate the game, the audience is going to sense that and figure that out very quickly, and they're not going to enjoy watching the streamer play that game. So you have to do this thing where the game is so good that both the audience and the streamer love it and are willing to abandon the thing that they're currently playing for it. And that is a tough thing to do. It is, shocker, not easy to build a game so good that people are willing to uproot basically their livelihoods to play it, because their livelihood's built around Valorant or CSGO 2 or whatever it is. It's very, very difficult to do that. And everything I've seen, like, I wonder if I could actually pull this up. If you guys remember back, let me see if I can just pull this up. When Warzone first dropped, yeah, 3 years ago. Okay. This is the first time they played it. Okay. A Call of Duty partner sponsored by Call of Duty Warzone. Okay. So a similar thing where a big streamer is playing a game for the first time, trying it, offering their thoughts. Now, he's also being paid to play it, so he has a vested interest in making it look good. But compare how he does this and his reactions compared to how, like, Dr. Lupo and all of those guys are responding to Suicide Squad right now. And you're going to sense a very different vibe, okay? A very, very different vibe, because he's actually enjoying the game. He's actually having fun compared to the, yeah, I think we needed to focus fire. I think that's what we needed to do. Very different vibe. Just watch this. Watch how much fun he's having and how it's it's infectious. People watch it and just want to experience this game with him, you know?
Did you get him? I got 2.
We get him? Let's go. Let's go. We gotta loot Tim. We gotta keep going.
Yeah, I'm going. Someone's flying in.
Out to the right.
Someone's flying.
Yeah, they're getting brought in from the gulag.
Man, imagine I hit that, bro. Oh my god.
You want to get this building right here, Tim?
Yeah, we can play safe. I'm going in through the window.
We're in the safe zone. Get ready.
Talk about the loudest entry ever.
They're like excited and giddy.
Dude, we can win this game, Tim.
I'm looking for these.
In here. Where? Low on me.
I'm coming.
I killed him.
Okay.
Backing out.
It's funny how bad at the game all these guys were back when it first launched.
I hit him once. I broke all of his armor with 1 shot. Let's go, baby.
You killed him, Tim?
Yeah.
You're my effing dad, bro. Literal
dad.
You are my effing dad. It's almost like when you're playing a game that's really good, people have fun, and you don't even really need to pay them to play it and have fun with it. You just like present it, and they have an awesome time, and that sells the game because they can see how much fun the streamer that they watch is having. But like watching how stiff their movement is compared to how these streamers play now, it's just funny. It's funny how far everybody's come, you know?
Play your life. I got him.
I got him. I need more armor.
It's also a little painful to watch.
Do you have any more armor? I'm out.
Part of the reason I pulled this up is because I know how this ends.
No.
And like, watch how Tim finishes this out, okay? Watch how he finishes this out. This is crazy. This was an actual
Come on, bro.
Dead ass. Great end to the game.
Just gonna be behind any tree. Just stay right with each other, bro.
I'm getting on this rock. Oh, my heart is racing.
Dude, I know.
Remember, he could be like laying down in bushes.
I know.
Wait for it.
I think I just saw a scope.
Let's fucking move. Are you hitting him? Oh!
You can't even look at me! I saw the gleams of your scope!
Are you kidding me, Tim?
Oh my, let's go, bro. First game, in memoriam of all.
In memoriam, that's fucking hilarious.
Oh my gosh, let's get it.
Now, contrast that first try of super excitement and passion to this.
So how did you do this?
For the touchdown.
Yeah, do an affliction.
There we go.
Big one jumped on me literally again.
A little bit of a different vibe. Granted, that was the end of a battle royale. Battle royales have really exciting finishes, especially if you win. But it just shows the difference between somebody like having a really good time and fun playing the game and somebody that's like, okay, let's do the damage. Here we go. You know, it's just very different. It's very, very different. But that's the kind of like that Tim the Tatman clip. That's what they needed to win people over to this. And I just don't think that this is going to deliver the same vibe, you know. Oh man, this game is such a blast. No, Shroud, to be clear, Shroud is generally a little more quiet and reserved. But I would say again, it's not my fault that they put a more reserved streamer on this event. They should have hired somebody like Tim the Tatman. They should have hired somebody that's going to like really be excited and talk it up and hype it up. Like that's what they need. They need excitement. Why did they hire people that are incredible players and amazingly talented players and talented streamers and accomplished streamers? They hired these guys that are fantastic at what they do. But what they do is much different than what this game needs. This game needs excitement. This game needs energy. This game needs that hype, even though it makes you stupid. It needs that to make this pop off and actually be successful. It needs that excitement and energy put into it. And so bringing in streamers that are amazing players, way better than any of us will ever be, but that have a much flatter affect, in my opinion, is a really dumb move. I just don't understand why they chose to go that route. I think parts of, you know, Warner Brothers marketing teams have been, you know, they've showcased some brilliant ideas like with Hogwarts Legacy. But with Suicide Squad, the whole marketing campaign has been just kind of like one consistent cluster after another, just one thing after another, just one oopsie tripping over itself. And it just seems like they can't figure out how to sell this game to the broader public. I just find it fascinating. It's just fascinating. It really is. Looking at the gameplay, I don't know. WTF is going on. If you showed me this gameplay without telling me it's Suicide Squad game, I would never know. Yeah, and like, to be fair, it is endgame content. I want to be clear, like with endgame content, things are chaotic. Things are difficult. It's with all of the enemies, all of the abilities are maxed out. They all have resistances to everything. That's normal for endgame stuff. Even in single player games, like endgame content is the most difficult content because it's at the end. So it's normal for it to be a little hectic and chaotic. So I don't want to give them trouble or bash them for that. But again, when we're talking about selling a game, you have to be able to communicate what the game is to people. And I feel like a lot of people are dissatisfied with what the game is so far. So they keep asking for more exposition and for a clear understanding of what the game actually is. And when they get that, it's just, again, a little underwhelming. So they just grow more frustrated, you know? I think the only one enjoying is Dr. Lupo. Maybe. I can't really read them that much. Shroud is normally pretty flat. So it's kind of tough to gauge. But again, I would say that's part of the problem. If you're trying to get the game hyped up and trying to convince people that the game is worth being super excited for and to pre-order, blah, 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 I don't think you should have gone the route of bringing in somebody like Shroud. Even though he's amazing, I think he was the wrong person to hire for this. You needed a Tim the Tap Man who is going to just drown you in energy, you know? It's basically an arena shooter. It seems like the end game is. Because this is the end game. This is what you do after you finish the story. This is what you do after everything else. So gamers have made up their mind was dead when they made the mistake of saying it was live service and would have battle pass, even if they somewhat walked it back. Yeah, and now apparently I saw somebody, I don't know if this is a fact, but I saw somebody in Shroud's chat that was saying it seemed like they had banned the term live service in certain spellings in the in the live chat, which if that's the case, that's freaking hilarious. It seemed like some people were saying that if it was hyphenated, it was banned, but if it was not, it was available. I'm not sure. But like that right there, that's the mission. That's the thing. Lex needs some alien stiffs from his old neighborhood for research. Sure, I guess. Then you get your payout, damage inflicted stats. Damn, Mixter Rocksteady is crazy. Activity score, combat score. He did a lot. Look how much damage he did. Jesus. So the Rocksteady gamer knows what he's doing. Shocker. Yeah. Where do you think Rocksteady will be after this game? I think after probably a year, if I had to put money on it, after a year, I think that they walk away from it, and they kind of quietly try to shut it down, and maybe they move to another live service game, or they move to, I don't know. They could try rebooting the Arkham series or doing something else, like a dedicated Catwoman game or something like that. Could be cool. But straight up, I think that these started as loot boxes. That's too loot boxy not to be a loot box, right? Like surely when they designed this, it was a loot box. Because it basically is. I mean, it's giving out mission rewards instead of like you buying it and then opening it. But that had to start as a loot box, right? Yeah, even people in chat are like, surely that's a loot box. It looks like a loot box. Come on. Let's see. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying to give it the fair shake, but man. Okay. Did we talk about Hellblade yet? No, we didn't. We bounced over to that to discuss it. Okay, let's talk about Hellblade real quick. Probably not real quick. It's probably going to take a second, but here we go. Hellblade. That initial trailer was crazy. Okay, that one. Where's the original one with like the giant? That's the one I need. Okay. So, Hellblade. New segment. Here we go. Also, Miles, thank you for the 2. Don't regret platinuming Avengers one bit. Oh, baby. You're the player that was playing it. Also, this MKS Avengers look like a godsend compare. Yeah, kind of. And then, yeah, if this is endgame, not touching it, kind of, dude. That's, oh, woof, woof, Mr. Game. Okay. Lastly, what was shown off at the Xbox showcase was the Hellblade. It wasn't the last thing they showed off, but it's the last thing we're talking about on the stream. So Hellblade is a game I loved the original. I thought it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. It was really novel and interesting how they handled the discussion over her mental illness and tied that into gameplay as well. It was fascinating how they handled it. It was from a smaller team. It was a game that kind of came out of nowhere and was just really high production value. Super, super cool. And I loved the original Hellblade, even if it had faults, which it did. Combat in it was terrible. The puzzles were pretty bland and boring after the first hour or two. The game was super short. Some people reported getting through it in like 5 hours. Others, it took more like 7. And there was a lot of walking and a lot of just slowly moving through like a very tight track to the next area. Still, I think worth playing, especially on Game Pass and stuff, but it had problems, even if the rest of it was pretty good. The sequel has been in the works at this point for 7 years. 7 years, okay? To be clear, as we mentioned on the podcast today, that is enough time from the time that they launched Batman Arkham Asylum to the time that they launched like Arkham Knight. That's like less than 7 years for Rocksteady. Like that's how much time we're talking about here. Okay, like this is an immense amount of time. That's like enough time for other studios like Santa Monica Studios to get both God of War and God of War Ragnarok out the door. It's the same amount of time for Insomniac to get like Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 out the door. Like this is a lot of time is what we're trying to communicate, okay? Like it's almost enough time to develop Starfield. Exactly, almost. So there's a lot of time at play here. They've had plenty of time to work on this. And what's been revealed has been sort of a mixed bag, unfortunately. The initial trailers that they dropped were very interesting, showed that this was going to be a very high fidelity game. And some of the stuff that we saw was crazy epic. So like there's this sequence that they opened up with the cave and this giant that comes out of the water. And this was one trailer that I thought was fantastic. I thought this really showed that this was going to be a super high production value cinematic experience. And there's just some crazy epic stuff that happens. Like this is just freaking cool. It's trippy as all hell, but super, super cool. Just see him crawling out of the water. I don't understand what's happening. I don't know I don't know if this is somebody we're supposed to care about or hate. I don't know why they're trying to hunt him, but it's epic. It's epic. I think God of War Ragnarok also spoiled me because I see this now and I'm like, yeah, it looks like a video game, and yeah, it's a big set piece, but I've seen bigger. But like God of War Ragnarok, I think did that because when I first saw this trailer years and years ago, I remember just being like, oh my God, how is this running on hardware? Like, how is this actually running in real time. It's baffling to me. You know, it shows how far we've come. But yeah, this is running in real time. This, at least at the time, it was running on a build of the game. And it's crazy. Looks absolutely fantastic. One thing you also need to know is that this is a game that runs with the letterboxing effect, kind of like the Order 1886 did, which will save resolution. So they don't have to render all of these pixels up here, and that gives them a little bit of a trick to give higher fidelity because they don't have to physically render as much. So you think like, ooh, rendering 4K is so intensive. It's true. But if you render 4K minus all of the space saved by using the black bars, you save a lot of rendering power, and you can put that into other things. But you can see that it's a super epic game. It's super intense, and this is cool. This, well, I don't think you can make an entire game of just this because there's very little interaction. The player is probably holding down the left stick in these sequences when you're running forward, and then maybe pulling the right trigger to like throw the spear and stuff. But broadly, this is on like train tracks. Okay, it's like this is very, very linear, but it's super epic at the same time. But there still has to be a video game at the core. So as the years have gone by, we've seen more trailers. They had this trailer at, let's see, this was June 11th of 2023. So this was last summer. And I thought that this trailer, while it probably is reflective of what you do in the game, I thought this trailer was kind of a waste of time, because it's a lot of very slow walking, and then there's this kind of cutscene with the really trippy effect. What do they call that? A mandala or something like that. Really, really trippy, and feels like, you know, you're on acid. But this plays out, and it's just the camera slowly moving around her while some dialogue plays out, and then she goes down into the water, into the puddle, and then like talks into the puddle and talks to her reflection. And then the trailer is over as she sinks in the water. Really weird trailer. I don't really know how useful that was. It didn't really communicate much of anything about the world or the story or the gameplay or anything. It just weird. So I thought that trailer was largely, unfortunately, a waste of time. And I'm saying that as a fan. I just didn't understand what the point of all of that was. But we got a broader look now at what is actually going to be in the game. And it also is not that helpful. So we saw some more clips. We saw some more like footage of what appears to be gameplay. So just like the first game, there's a lot of walking through corridors as dialogue plays out. That's fine if the story is good enough. That's cool. There's these sequences they showed a few times of her being tackled by these like monster zombie looking creatures. We of course have Melina Jorgens, who was originally, fun fact, the video editor for the studio. And then she stepped in and did some of the motion capture for Senua until they found an actress to do it. And then they were like, you're actually really good at this. So then she just became the actress for Senua and the face scan model and everything. And now that's what she does. I think she still edits videos for them, but super cool. They show some more dialogue and stuff like that. And then some more walking. And then some combat with Senua slashing and hacking and stuff. And if you didn't play the original game, it's important for you to understand that the combat in the first game was very button mashy. It was like mash, 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 dodge. Mash, 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 parry. Mash, 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 dodge. And that was basically it. It was very, very underwhelming, but it was kind of saved because the rest of the game was pretty good. And the game wasn't very long. So by the time you got sick of the combat, the game was basically over. Now in this, they say at the very start that they've revamped all of combat. Okay. For one, I find it strange that discussing the opening of the combat section, they have the VFX director talking, not the gameplay director. I don't even know if they have a gameplay director, but it's weird that they aren't doing that.
She's in her own unique way and battling through encounters with enemies that will push Senua to her limits.
Okay, battling. So for this, it's important to ask yourself, what's the question they're trying to answer, right? The question is, how is the combat in this game, or the gameplay in this game, better than in the last game? Because that was the common complaint. That was the biggest frustration people had with the game, was the combat.
On Saga, we've taken everything to the next level.
Okay.
With a new motion capture space, a bigger stage team, a stunt crew, and a new cast.
We spent a lot of
That's good for like narrative stuff, not necessarily for combat, but okay.
time planning the motion capture shoots, thinking of what events would be good to bring into this fight. Like, how can we make this fight feel different from the previous fight?
Okay.
We have all new combat for the sequel.
All new combat. Awesome. What's it like?
One of our key goals was the ability to actually tell a story throughout it. It does feel very different from the first game.
It feels very different from the first game. How?
It's very brutal and you're very invested in it.
It's brutal and you're invested. How?
Senua isn't a superhero. She's fighting for survival, and we want the player to feel her struggle in every step of her journey.
I feel like that's not an answer to the question, but okay.
We want the player to always feel like they just scraped through, just survived it.
We want you to feel like you barely survived the combat because it feels very different and is intense and brutal. How?
Mel knows Senua better than anyone.
And then they just go into discussion over Senua. Did you see what they did? So they're talking about how these things are different, but then they don't show it. They don't explain it. And it could be that it is actually very, very different. And that it actually is way improved. And it really does feel like you barely scrape by in a really cool way. But they need to show that. They need to communicate that. And just asserting it is not sufficient to do that. Because guess what? A lot of studios, a lot of devs will say that their game is, they think, Game of the Year material. And guess what? It's not. A lot of people think that X game is fantastic and that, oh, well, our gameplay in this is amazing. And it's not. When I went to that Avatar preview event, I spoke to the gameplay director and I asked him what gameplay system is going to define Avatar. What game system do you want players to know about and know to focus on that's going to make this game really click? He said the cooking system. And the cooking system is the system that commonly people complain about the most in Avatar because it's so underbaked. See what I did there? It's just not great. Okay. So to be completely clear, I think it's possible everything they're saying is true, but they need to show it and justify it. And it would have been very easy just showing now there's all of these different combos that you can do. There's different weapon types. There's different swords that can be equipped. There's things like you could go through that, or maybe there's not stuff like that. And instead it's just like, with different enemy archetypes and different enemies fighting in different styles, players have to change their approach. And some enemies will swarm you. Others are very powerful single encounters, and you have to approach each one differently because they each require a different strategy for taking down. Just say something like that. Something like that. And that's more than we got. That would be at least an explanation of how maybe it's different or how it works and how it's good and why it's good. But we haven't gotten anything like that. Instead, they just assert it and then move on. And whenever I've seen studios and marketing teams just blindly assert something and then move on, it's usually because they're trying to just quickly glance over it. It's like when Todd Howard says Starfield's technology is amazing and it's the most impressive game, technologically speaking, that we've ever made. And then he moves on very quickly. Very, very quickly. Oh, we think like the most hilarious thing about this was when Todd was asked in that Xbox, I think it was a Kind of Funny Games actually. Kind of Funny Games did like a sort of interview. It was basically a puff piece kind of thing where they sat down with him. Was it Kind of Funny Games? I don't remember who it was. Paris was there. But they did this interview where instead of asking like some really hard-hitting questions, they kind of just gave him layups the whole time. And then when they finally did ask a question, I think it was from chat or from the community or something, and they asked him, like, what about vehicles to traverse on-planet surfaces? And Todd was just like, there are not vehicles in the game, but when you're using your boost pack or jet pack, it feels really, really cool to go on these low gravity planets. And then they just moved on. It was like he couldn't even come up with anything to say, It was just like, It feels cool to bounce. And that was the whole explanation. Why aren't there vehicles, sir? Because bouncing's fun. That was basically the answer. This is the whole thing. So I'm always a little concerned when something is asserted blindly and not discussed beyond that, and people just shift. You know, they just shift. Could be the case that everything they're saying is true, but if it was true, why didn't they just show how it was true? You know, makes you wonder. So that's one of the reasons something about the game is just like a little bit off and just makes me feel a little weird. They show discussions of spatial audio and the music, and that all is great and was great in the first game. So I have no doubt that it will be great here. And then the other stuff they show is just more dev interviews and stuff, and then a release date of May 21st. But all told, again, like the questions we had about the game have not only have they not been answered, but it seems like they're going to great lengths to avoid answering it. And everybody that talks about this, and Hellblade in general, is frustrated by the combat, by the puzzles. They accused it of just being a walking simulator, basically, and that the game was really short. They didn't directly address any of those other than saying that this game is shorter. And that's kind of it. And afterwards, they said that the game is roughly the same length as the last one, which again was only about 7 hours for most people. For some people, even less than that. So after 7 years, they've only gotten 7 hours. As Joel Raptor said in the podcast, each year they've been working on this game, they've been able to add an hour of content. For 7 years. Now, maybe the production value is so crazy high that they have earned that count, and it's going to be 7 hours that's so crazy epic and amazing visually and auditorily and everything that it's going to earn that, and it's going to be worth playing because of that. Maybe it's possible, but I don't think we've seen enough to really show that. That first encounter with the giant coming out of the water, I was like, okay, that probably took a while. And so if we have that type of encounter nonstop for like 7 hours of gameplay, okay, that's a fair trade-off. I get it. I understand. And it's a smaller team. I get it now. But that's not what we're seeing. The more we see of the game, like, is stuff like this. It's stuff like this of her walking. Just walking. And it could be that this is just what's between each of those epic encounters, and they don't want to spoil the whole game, so they're just not going to show it. But you have to wonder. You have to wonder when they don't actively acknowledge those frustrations and concerns people have. You have to wonder why. Is it possible that they just honestly don't know that people are frustrated by the combat, and people were frustrated by the short length and by the walking simulator allegations? Is it possible that they honestly have never heard of those? I don't think so. Because no matter what, no matter where you look, if somebody asks about Hellblade, that's what comes up. And the fact that they reference the combat, saying it's very different from the first game, that suggests there was something wrong with the combat in the first game. So they've taken steps to improve it or change it. But they won't show how. And it's weird because this game is coming out very soon. And this was a platform for them to do that. Again, it would have taken 2 or 3 sentences to just explain, oh, each of these combat encounters is altered and we want each of them to feel like you barely survive, as they said. But we do that because each enemy type requires a different approach for Senua. Or maybe you have different weapons that you can use, or maybe different attack sequences or combos work differently with different enemies. Things like that. Just explain however your combat system works. Explain why it's better than it was before. But they didn't do that. They just didn't. They just didn't. Yeah, they have 120 developers at Ninja Theory, with contractors additionally, I'm sure, doing some outside outsourced help on the game. I'm sure they have a decently sized team all told. But for 7 years, 120 developers, I would think, would be able to get more than 7 hours of stuff out the door. But it's not always about length, boys. Remember that. Not always about length. It's about the quality of the length. And in this case, I hope the quality is super, super high. But we shall see. We shall see. I'm just shocked at all this because after playing Senua's Sacrifice, I was sure that this was like a new player up there with Naughty Dog, like with a big budget. These guys are going to blow everybody away. And instead, after 7 years, they seem to basically just be doing Hellblade 1.5 from what we've seen so far. And I'm frustrated by that. Still probably a great game for Game Pass. Still probably worth getting. Again, with it being shorter and on Game Pass, you can't really complain about the price not being fair because you can just download it. But it feels like, you know, what have you been doing for 7 years? You know, that I can't help but wonder that. Because it's very, very strange. Do you think COVID played a part in how long it took to make? Absolutely. Like with a cinematic game like this that requires a lot of motion capture stuff, absolutely that delayed things. But they're based in the UK, I believe. And if you say if you say that this took them like COVID lockdowns added, let's just say they basically didn't do any work for a year, which is very generous. I think that like they still have gameplay teams working and level designers working from home, but let's be really generous and say that a year of progress was basically lost. I don't know if that's accurate, but even then, 6 years for basically a 1.5. So I'm confused as to what they've been working on all this time, with this being the final result and what they have to show for it. So I'm not I'm shockingly underwhelmed. I was not expecting to feel underwhelmed, but I am. End of segment. Okay, let's bounce over here one last time. Okay, so Shroud is playing more of the endgame. And as you can see, in this endgame mission, they are trying to allow for plant growth, I guess. So they have to kill enemies that are, I guess, trying to attack Ivy's plants. And so you have to protect the plants before they are killed. And so that's what they're doing. And voila, they've almost killed him. Okay, they did it. And now they run to the portal after the defeating the enemies, and the plants have grown. Zip all the way over there. And I think that's going to be the whole thing. Oh, we can talk about the deluxe. You're right, CM. And the let's see. Yeah, Shelton. Yeah, we can talk about that. Jacob, don't clip the Hellblade thing just yet. I have to toss in that last bit about the deluxe edition thing that was revealed. So I'll do that in just a second. Okay, so they made it to the portal, and now they complete the mission. The weird loot box thing drops out of the sky. She's gonna thumbs up, okay. Winner, Dr. Lupo. So I guess he did the best out of the crew.
Goofy.
I know, I love
so
it.
Goofy. What happened, Derek? What happened?
He was definitely chilling.
Behind the scenes stuff going on, guys. I got to take care of business. All right, I'm sure it's very nice and easy just being a streamer. Come to play the game, but some of us have jobs. Okay.
That's fair.
I need more of developers giving streamers crap for not having a real job. That gives me life. So the loot box thing comes in, and then they get their rewards: a legendary pistol, a LexCorp shield modifier. Okay. And then Venom tolerant. It's a second piece of a Venom tolerance thing, neck bomb, grenade damage to grunts, plus 17 crit damage. And then I'm guessing resistance to like poison effects and stuff. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think at one point that had to be a loot box that they cut out and changed. Maybe that's part of what they did during the big delay. Maybe they're like, okay, everybody's giving us crap for the battle pass already. Let's take out those loot boxes and rework them as just rewards for missions. Maybe that's what they did. That would be really funny. Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. Warner Brothers think villains killing the Justice League makes it transgressive and all that, but this game comes across as the most transparent corporate over-involved money grab in a long time. Yeah, it's just that stank is something that's not easy to shake, for real. Isn't a bad investment to develop a game for 7 years, the last 7 hours, so not a lot of replays for subscribers. That's why Netflix invests more in series than movies, right? Yeah, but you also like, I think it's not ideal. Like ideally, they get you to subscribe to Game Pass for games like Call of Duty that you're going to play for a year straight until the next one comes out, and then you play through Game Pass to play the new Call of Duty. Like that's the dream setup, is to have a live service game like that that's just epic and everybody's playing. However, you can't have that for every single game. And I appreciate that about Phil Spencer's lineup at Xbox, is that he's empowering devs to make the live service games if they want to, but also to just put up these more experimental games like Hellblade, like Pentiment is the best example. I believe the game director of Pentiment said that game probably would never have seen the light of day if it didn't launch with like Game Pass specifically, because it was such a weird niche game that it likely would never have actually been released, because like it just was hard to sell to people. But on Game Pass available just to download at no added charge, people decided to try it and actually ended up really liking it. Telltale, man, am I the only one that cannot stand episodic games though? I really can't stand it. I just wait till the full game is out. I just don't like episodic stuff. Even with what was that game that came out with like, you know, the two girls and it's like a weird time mechanic and then the storms coming in. What the hell is that game called? You guys know what I'm talking about? They're on like the coastal city. Life is Strange. Life is Strange. Thank you. Life is Strange is also an episodic game, but like when you play it after all the episodes have come out and you just play it all the way through, it works really well. I just don't like it when I'm like, oh, I played the first episode. Cool. Now I'm going to wait a month until they release the next one. I hate that stuff. Or wait a week, more like. I just can't stand that. Until Dawn? I don't think Until Dawn was episodic, was it? Episodic is good for subscriptions. Yeah, but I think gamers generally are frustrated by it. Because if you're like excited to play a new game and you download it and it's like, okay, now wait till next week. It will be so transparent what they're trying to do. Like, but you have to stay subscribed to Game Pass to get the next episode. Like, it would drive people out of their minds. And rightly so. I mean, that would be so toxic, I think. I just want to buy the game, play all of it, and have access to all content up front. But that seems to be too much to ask for these days. Yeah, kind of. Unless you're playing Baldur's Gate. That's the nice thing. Baldur's Gate 2. Or Baldur's Gate 3 as well. So, yeah. Anyway, checking back in with Suicide Squad endgame content. I'm shocked that the endgame content seems to not just be the exact same missions as the base game, but it also seems to be in even less interesting spaces, because it's in these else worlds is what they're calling them, which is like an alternative multi-dimensional something or other. And so you go to this place that maybe is randomly generated, maybe it's just a collection of these else worlds that you bounce between and shuffle through. I'm not sure, but the fact that already just in this little stream that they're doing, people are already really frustrated at the game and feel like the game is really lackluster. That's a problem. And my stance, just like I said in the last little bit, I just think they needed to excite players with this event, and amazingly enough, it's more boring than I was expecting. I was expecting like big boss fights and like a singular gigantic enemy that you can try with different modifiers and stuff. That could be cool. But instead it's just fight through waves and waves of enemies, protect this objective. It's just more of the same. It's just amazing. And the sponsored stream turns you off. Yeah, I think for some people it can turn you off. Ideally, like, you don't need to pay people. Like, ideally, right? Ideally, you would just release the game or give access to the alpha or the beta or whatever it is to the streamer, and they'd be like, oh, this is going to pop off on stream. So yeah, I'll do it. But instead, they have to get paid to play it, which I think says a lot. I think that says a lot, right? Yeah, ideally you wouldn't need to. But then again, to be fair, Call of Duty also does paid streams and stuff for early access stuff. And I'm going to tell you guys a little behind the scenes thing. One of the things you want to do, a lot of these companies have a list of like streamers and gamers and influencers. And there's one list for people that get stuff for free, that don't get paid. They just get access to the game code when it launches, whatever. They might get invited to like an early access online digital event or something. So there's that list. And then there's a list of the people that are considered the premium influencers. And that list of people are the ones like Shroud who get paid to play these things. And your goal as a influencer trying to build out a career is to get on that paid list. So if you're going to like play Suicide Squad early, you're not just going to get access to it. You're going to get paid to do it. And, you know, it's the difference. Like if they called me and said, hey, Luke, do you want to play Suicide Squad's Endgame early? I'd be like, yeah, I can make a video on that. That'll pop off. That'll be easy money. Like I'll make good money on that video that goes up about it. But you want to be the creator that makes that video that pops off and that also gets paid to do this. The downside is that usually there are limitations and you can't be overly critical. You can't, like, I wouldn't be able to make the video that I'm going to make about this if I were paid to play it. They would be like, yeah, for 30 days or for 6 months or something, you're not allowed to make actively disparaging content about the game or something. You just have to kind of be quiet and not say anything. And to be clear, like, I know we can be like, that's so toxic, that shouldn't be allowed. I think that makes sense. Like if you're going to go to the trouble of paying a creator to promote your game, it makes sense that you also have an agreement that they're not going to bash it. Like if you hired Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to promote your company and then he does the ad and immediately turns around and is like, oh, they're terrible. That would be kind of slimy. If they are terrible, maybe they deserve it, but it still would be a little slimy if you paid them to do that. Like imagine if Flo from Progressive just started bashing. She's like, oh no, I use Geico. I hate Progressive. That wouldn't make any sense at all, right? So of course there's limitations to what you can say if you're paid to promote something. But that's why the types of streamers and creators that do promotional stuff, a lot of the time, you know, their brand is not built on being like a game reviewer. They're a game player. They're a streamer. They play the games. They don't necessarily critique the games, which is just why there's kind of a distinction. It's why for the sponsor stuff that I've done, I always have an agreement. And I told my agent this for all negotiations. We've lost, I'm not joking, tens upon tens of thousands of dollars I've missed out on because I've said I will not promote your game unless I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Meaning, like, if I try your game, if I play it and I don't like this thing, I need to be allowed to say that I don't like that thing. I'm not going to do the like TikTok ad thing where it's like, oh my God, this latest mobile game is the best thing I've ever played. I'm not going to do that. I have to be allowed to say what I want to say, positive or negative. And if the game is really good, you're going to benefit from that because I'll have good things to say and people will see the video and know that I could have said anything about it, right? But instead, a lot of the time brands are not that confident in their product and will choose not to hire you because they know that you probably will have some negative things to say, which to me is the most damning thing ever. Like, can you imagine that? Like, can you imagine? So yeah, usually that to me is like the biggest red flag. And often, I won't name any names, of course, because those discussions were confidential, but a lot of the games that have reached out to me and asked me to like, we'll pay you to promote our game and to hype it up, say all these things word for word, and you can't be negative about the game. A lot of the time those games end up sucking. So it comes around and ends up working out for everybody. Depends on the content creator himself. If he is a streamer or critic, the earlier will be paid for his time, but the latter rarely. I see someone get paid to say his critique. Absolutely. It's just there is a. I think the critic benefits from the individual video where they make their opinion known. The person that promotes stuff is much more valuable to the companies that have all the money. And it makes sense. Like, not many companies are going to pay you to critique their game. Sometimes they do, actually, usually before the game launches, but they'll pay you to like offer them advice or tips on how they can improve and how they could change things. But that's pretty rare. Honestly, how does a creator not think of their brand when promoting garbage? That's why I trust your content. Well, I appreciate that. I don't know. I think also there's some times where a creator honestly will like something and promote it because they honestly like it. And then the broader community ends up not liking it, you know? Yeah, like when I did the Immortals of Avium thing, I clarified with them. I'm like, I need to be allowed to say whatever I want to say. And I said what I wanted to say in that video from the selection of the game we got to see. I think for Immortals of Avium, the unfortunate thing for them was just that the game just could not drive much attention. People just were not interested in that, which was surprising because it was an Unreal Engine 5 game. It looked really, really cool. And it graphically was amazing, but they just could not find a way to put it in a package that people were interested in. And that's just unfortunate. For that like early access thing we did. I think the finals also gave me early access, but I don't think they paid me. I don't know, it's been a minute. I disclose everything. If it's paid for in the video, I say, and we mark it and we follow all the FTC guidelines, but it's been a minute since we did the finals preview event. I think they just gave early access and I was interested in the game. So I was like, yeah, I'll try it. I think promoting garbage can also be your brand. Yeah. Can you imagine? It's like, what's your brand? I promote garbage. I find the worst games I can find, and then I promote those. That would be funny. I see some of these people on like TikTok. I get those videos every once in a while when I'm scrolling, and it's just like, this new mobile game has changed my life. Or like the really cringy ones where they're like, I'm a doctor in my second life and I save all my patients. And then it's just them like doing a gotcha game like Bejeweled or something. And it's Dr. Bejeweled. And it's just so cringy, man. It's so cringy. Do you think Rocksteady could pull off another Arkham game after this, or is the game over? I don't think Rocksteady will. I think probably the new studio, 100 Stars or whatever, founded by the same guys. I think they probably could do something like that. But yeah, I don't think we're ever getting an Arkham style game of that level and quality again. Because I just don't think the Rocksteady of 10 years ago is even still there. You know? I just don't think so. This is my favorite game. The day before. Man. Can you imagine if the day before paid people to do it? Oh man. Like I've asked the community before. I've asked you guys like if you would find it funny if I did like a serious in-depth critique of like Raid Shadow Legends or something. And I thought about trying to go and getting Raid Shadow Legends to sponsor like an in-depth critique, but they were one that they didn't love the idea of sponsoring a critical look at their game, which I was like, fair, but I think it'd be really funny because it's kind of a meme at this point. Sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. And I will say Raid, back in the day, Raid would just throw money at you. Nowadays, Raid Shadow Legends is probably one of the worst paying sponsors out there. I've never been sponsored by them, but from the countless times I've been approached, it's kind of crazy how low their offering rate is compared to other companies that you probably have not heard of. It's crazy. Of the products you passed on reviewing, did any of them turn out to be good? Trying to think if there's any that we've passed on promoting that. Let's see what's there. I think there was an EA game that ended up being pretty good that we passed on because it was similar where like it was, the game looked interesting, but we had that requirement that like I need to be allowed to say whatever I want, positive or negative, and they're like, well, we're just like, this is a promotional thing, we're not trying to do critical content, like that's just not what this is. We're trying to get a video that's going to hype people up, not one that's going to potentially bring things into question. But I don't remember. Nothing jumps out. Like nothing jumps out was like, oh yeah, we totally missed out on that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of anything that we missed out on that ended up being really good. But it's also like, if I were to make a video where I'm not allowed to say anything I want, it's very clear. Like, you know, the videos, you can even kind of tell in like this stream, you can tell that they're not allowed to like really say, oh, like when they ask, so there's only 4 playable characters at launch. The inference from that is that they're disappointed there's only 4 playable characters at launch, but they can't verbalize that. They can't say, there's only 4. There's not like 8 or 12 or something. Like there's only 4. And they say like, so there's only 4 playable characters at launch. And then they followed up with, yeah, but there's a lot more characters coming after the game comes out, you know? So let's see. Okay. But Lies of P, I don't recall Lies of P. Maybe they did reach out, but I don't recall Lies of P reaching out. Did they? For like a big thing? I don't know. That doesn't jump out. Do you think the point that you reached now as a full-time content creator changed your content? I've been with you since the Death Stranding, I'm assuming, analysis that you did with a Google form, but what I miss is the big critiques. Am I missing something, or you think the way I think? Well, Redbox, the thing with the critiques is, for one, they take weeks and weeks or months and months of work and eat up just a ton of time. And then we put them out, and a critique can do maybe like 250,000 views if it's a decent critique that performs well. Sometimes they do much more than that. Sometimes they do much worse. But that's the thing, is it's not consistent. But let's say it does 250,000. That might make me like a few $100s in ad revenue, maybe, assuming there's no copyright issues or shared revenue splits or any problems like that. But let's even be generous and say it made like $500. With that, like months of work for $500, that probably does not even come close to paying for Jacob to edit it. Just being real. Like, it's just losing money. Now, I've done it in the past because I like talking about games and I like doing the deep dives, but it's just not a very sustainable way of talking about games or doing the deep dives. So what I was able to figure out is that some people were like, well, just split it into multiple parts. We tried that with Ghost of Tsushima in that critique, and it just did not work. People hated the format and the layout of it. And when I re-uploaded it as one big video, it did better, but still people just hated it. So what I found was actually doing a handful of videos in smaller formats, each with their own individual topic, ends up communicating basically the same stuff, but in a format that's more approachable and that's definitely way more sustainable. That's not just going to lose tons of money. Because at this point, it's not just me. Like, I don't have a day job. This is my job. So if this doesn't make enough money in the month, I don't pay my mortgage. My wife and kids, like, their life is actively affected. I have 2 contractors that work full time for me. So I can't pay their monthly pay. Like, I'm limited in all of these various ways just because I decided to make the one huge video instead of making 4 or 5 smaller videos. So it's been tough. It's been tough to break it up and to still do the big videos. Didn't think those videos made so little. Yeah, sometimes you're really lucky and it pops off, or you release it during a high ad payout period where like there's a higher CPM, but like a really successful critique might make $500 to $1,000 in ad revenue. If you were able to convert that to like Patreon and people were like subscribing to Patreon, that could cover the cost of it. But in my experience, there weren't that many people willing to actually subscribe to like a Patreon to justify it, which is fine. Like I'm not entitled to anybody's money, but like at some point, if it doesn't make financial sense and it's just losing tons of money, like it just doesn't really make sense anymore, you know? So I think I still will do 1 or 2 big critiques a year, but the days of me pumping out a critique every month probably are over just because it's not sustainable. It just doesn't really make sense, unfortunately. Is it true that January is universally a bad time for YouTube uploads? Not necessarily in terms of views, but in terms of payouts. Like I think in December, my CPM, so the amount of money I made per 1,000 views, was roughly $6, I think. That's not including taxes or extra fees and stuff, but I think it was like $5.50, $5.98, something like that, was kind of the going rate in the gaming space. And in January, it's like $2.50. It plummets. So if you made, I just want to use round numbers because it'll be easy, but let's just say like you made a $10,000 or something in December. In January, with the exact same performance, videos doing just as well, you would make like 4,000. Like plummets, you know? So it's a very, very different thing. Very different thing. Strangely, January in terms of the payout and the ad revenue is very, very low for the same views. July, there's just nobody watching, which is strange. Yeah, winter's about saving. Winter's about saving, investing, and what we've been doing is diversifying. A year ago, the live channel didn't make any money at all. Now, the live channel is sustainable. A month ago, TikTok was not sustainable at all. Now, TikTok is sustainable, us putting the effort in there. So we're better off. Why don't you have sponsors for the critiques, or did I miss ones where you had those? We did try having sponsors for the critiques, but what we found was sponsors inevitably were asking if they could just sponsor a 20-minute video. Because like we did try to do like a sponsor for the first hour, a sponsor for the second hour, and a sponsor for the third hour of a big critique. And we had 1 or 2 sponsors. Salad.io was the big one that we worked with, and they were willing to do that. But that was kind of it. I think that was kind of it, yeah. Not many other sponsors were interested. They wanted to do the shorter videos because they'd rather take up 10% of a 10-minute video or 20-minute video, whatever, for their ad read than 1% of a 5-hour video or a 3-hour video. You know, they just would rather be more of a have a bigger stake in the video. Yeah, Mauer, diversifying. Lucas woke. Yeah. Oh my God, I diversified my income. Oh God, here we go. Thank you for the 2 cheese based. Do you think we'll ever get another Infamous game? I think so. Unless there's licensing issues I don't know about, but the fact that they're owned by Warner Brothers, I think surely they do. Or no, Infamous. I'm thinking of Injustice. In terms of Infamous, maybe in a long time, but in terms of like the next 5 to 10 years, yeah, I don't think we see it anytime soon. I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. All of the statistics of being a streamer sound like such a headache. It can be, but it's also part of the job. Like, to be clear, this is a dream job. I know it's like, oh, woe is me. The ads on the critiques aren't making enough money. Like, yeah, they weren't. So we fixed it. We pivoted away. I could be stubborn and just keep doing what I've always done because that's what I'm used to. But you gotta be flexible. You move with it and figure it out. But yeah, if somebody were to sponsor the long videos, I would do them. Like, I still love the idea of doing critiques. I love deep diving into these games, but it's like you're just limited, you know? You're just, at some point, unfortunately, it's not all fun and games. Like, I have people that rely on me to make X amount in a month to be able to pay the bills of the people that work for me and pay the bills for my family and our health insurance and all that. So there's certain things I have to do. You know, it just is limited. Could do 1 year like H-Bomber? Like I think for, correct me if I'm wrong, I think for him, he has like a Patreon and stuff. I think he's got a community backing, right? Maybe I'm mistaken there, but for me, like even if you have like a 2 to 3 million view video, I don't think that even is sustainable for a year of work. Like the ad revenue is just not that high. And think about the risk reward of that. If the video does not do that well, you just aren't going to be able to live for the next year because you don't have another thing lined up. Like you're just screwed. So you'd have to have something like a Patreon where your fan base is so committed, they're willing to just throw money at you through the year while you work on that video. And if your audience is willing to do that, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Very, very few creators have audiences willing to do something like that. It's extremely rare. Extremely rare. So I can't play the whole COD campaign while watching one of your reviews. Yeah, now you have to watch 2. KB13, I think one of the issues is that a viewer can't watch the critique without playing the game, whereas when it comes to your short videos, they could still watch some of them. Yeah, exactly. And it's also, it's more digestible. So people see the 3-hour mark on the Hogwarts critique and they're like, oof, I don't have time for that. And they just go click on something else. Whereas when the video's 15 minutes long or 20 minutes long or 30 minutes long, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. So they pop in and they watch it. So if I take that 3-hour critique and I just kind of rework it into what is effectively like a series of 20-minute videos or 6 half-hour videos, I'm communicating all the same stuff, just in a different form factor, and people find that much more consumable. People like that. So are you getting timed out for asking why the game looks so boring? Oh, Bingo Bang, Bing Bang, were you saying that in Shroud's chat or something? Because you're not getting timed out here if you're saying that. I don't think we have any mods on on Twitch right now. So that's funny if that's the case. Yeah, nobody's timed you out on my end. So are you saying for like on Shroud stuff you've been timed out? Yeah, over there. Oh, dude, really? Oh, no. So Bing Bang got timed out for asking why Suicide Squad looks boring. So he's got his mods timing people out if they're being critical of the game. It makes sense. It's probably one of the agreements in the sponsorship agreement that they have to manage chat and keep that stuff out. But man, that's crazy. That's funny. That's freaking hilarious. Wow. Oh, thank you, JM25, for the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Here's £2, daddy. Oh, baby. Get yourself something nice. Thank you, my friend. To be honest, I like the 3-hour videos. I don't watch them in one gulp, though, but I can see why people prefer 15, 20 minutes more. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is people are like, where did the critiques go? I'm like, they're still here. They're just in a different form. Like they've just been broken up into more digestible videos.
Evening. I am off to go 12:50 a.m. in my time.
Ooh, yeah, go get some sleep, my friend. Thank you for hanging with us. Thank you. And thank you for the sub. 6 months, baby. Red box. Thank you so much. Go get some sleep. Let's see. JPEG, live streaming is my favorite endeavor of yours. There's plenty of good critiques out there. It's almost become an oversaturated genre of content, ironically. Yeah, and what I found is like the creators that are really good at the critiques right now, they'll do like an 8-hour video on Starfield, like Patrician, I think is his name. Like he did. And it's a very well done, very comprehensive video. And that's awesome. That's awesome. But like for me to compete with that and get that size of video out, or, you know, my own version of like a 2-hour critique or 3-hour critique, that would take me and my team weeks and weeks of work, and it would go out. And even if it did as well as his, which I think is about at 1 million views, you know, if you do that and you're like for January, if you just say it does like $2.50 per thousand for 1 million views. That's 1,000 to thousands, right? You made $2,500 on that for weeks of work, and I'm paying Jacob to cut it together. So Jacob for the month, like for Jacob to spend a month working on that, not counting my time, like that's already gone with Jacob's pay. And then like for me, like I just didn't make any money myself for that. So like I would have to edit it myself to not lose the money to paying for somebody to edit it. And so it just stops working. You know, the math doesn't work out. It just doesn't work. If you have a second job, it can work perhaps. But for me with a team and this being my job, it just doesn't, the math doesn't math, you know, it doesn't math. I appreciate you being true to yourself, babe. Thanks, babe. Keep it going. That's how you grab my attention with the first Suicide Squad video. Okay, yeah, good. Thanks, Miles. I appreciate you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they're even hiding the battle pass in the dev build. Yeah, they are. It looks like it. It looks like it. Oh, I forgot to do the last little bitty thing. If you're still watching, Jacob, if you're still here, I guess stitch this into the Senua thing. But yeah, the other thing I almost forgot about and I can talk, I swear. Halfway to a year. Ooh, 6 months. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
IRX11 is now a red flag.
Yeah, you are.
Halfway to a year as a member.
Oh, baby. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Thank you. So last thing I almost forgot to talk about with regard to Hellblade 2. They also announced that it's going to be digital only, and the deluxe, like digital deluxe, whatever, it's going to be $50. And that's when they announced that it was going to be about the same size and length as the first game. So $50 for about 7 hours, Game Pass it's included, and no physical launch either. There's a lot of physical only or physical preservation activists, let's say, that are very frustrated by this, and I totally get it. It's another game that's only having a digital release. Unfortunately, this is just the new normal. This is where we are. Like every game is going to be doing this, especially on Game Pass. If it's launching on Game Pass first and foremost, there's just not much reason to put all the effort into a physical launch. I'm somebody that loves my physical media. You can see all down here, all my physical media. I'm the guy that still buys Blu-rays, okay? Because the quality is way better. I actually own the film. The audio specifically is way better than streamed audio. It's not even close. So I love me some physical media, but unfortunately, the industry and the consumers have just decided they would rather digital stuff. So this is just where it's going, unfortunately. I don't like it, but it's just how it's going. The only way it changes is if masses of people come in and refuse to buy the digital stuff and only buy physical versions of games. And let's just be honest, there's not many people that are going to boycott Hellblade because of the digital only release. There's just not. So it just is what it is, unfortunately. Yeah, bingo bang, bing. Why do I keep saying bingo? Bing bang. Yes, I am from the 50s. Yeah, basically. How does audio get better on disc? It's basically because on disc, like there's higher data bandwidth usually. Like for that was a really clunky way of saying it. Basically, when video is being streamed through something like Netflix, they are sending the audio over in a much more compressed format and in a lower bit rate compared to what you get on a Blu-ray. On Blu-ray, the quality of the audio is very high, as is the quality of the video in terms of bit rate. On streaming services, they're mostly concerned with how it looks. How it sounds is kind of an afterthought. And it's because very few people actually have sound systems to deliver higher quality audio. A lot of people, I think most people, at least I saw this when I was selling TVs to people, most people were only buying the TV and using TV speakers. So
I am part of this train.
Makes sense.
Keep up the great work, Luke. I love your honest reviews. In my opinion, you have not missed a take on a game yet.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Have I missed? Surely I've missed some. Recently, we've just been on a streak because like Starfield was so egregiously problematic and it was so obviously going to have a lot of issues. And yet nobody was talking about it. And it blew my mind because I was like, there are so many red flags with this game. How is it not a big point of discussion? So I was kind of like one of only a couple of people that were saying there's something off here, and I don't think you should be getting hyped. There's something very weird going on. And it ended up, aging really well because people are like, yeah, no, the game didn't live up to the hype. Oh my God. I just got triggered so bad. 6 Zappy DVD is better than Blu-ray. Get out. Get out. How dare you? By what metric is it better? I don't even know. AV, anything above 192 kilobit audio is very difficult to notice. You need $500 plus headphones. Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's just, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. It absolutely does make sense why they prioritize the visual quality over the audio quality, both in videos, in games, films, whatever. It makes sense. But as somebody that likes high quality audio and has nice speakers and headphones and stuff, it drives me crazy because I appreciate higher quality stuff. And so the fact it's really hard to find is frustrating. Yeah, permaban though. Wait till he comes back with floppy disks are better. Yeah, exactly. Actually, floppies are great. Oh man. Well, here's what we're gonna do, fam. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to pop off. I'm gonna go check in with the missus. I'm gonna film a video on Suicide Squad. We were gonna play The Last of Us Part 2 remastered on stream, but we'd spent 3 hours talking about all this stuff, having a great time. So, it is what it is. Yeah, Luke likes only like Caesar salads and finger food for 12-year-olds. I mean, finger foods are awesome. Don't judge. And yes, Caesar salads are amazing. So I'm not even going to apologize for that. No, I don't even feel bad. Okay. I don't even feel bad. Favorite meal. I love me. Honestly, favorite meal, barbecue, like barbecue pulled pork. Oh my God. I lose it. I love me some barbecue. Right to jail, right away. So anyway, Luke, where can we get your merch? If you just go lukestevenstv.com, that's where you can order these shirts, lukestevenstv.com. You can get a Hype Makes You Stupid shirt yourself, and they are delightful and very soft. I promise you will not be disappointed. And it supports me and the team, so it's a win-win. Thank you everybody for watching. I love you all dearly. I will see you. What day is it? Friday. I'll see you Monday, and we'll talk soon. Much love. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.